Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 41. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation, as we get set for some Sunday night football between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Green Bay Packers. A big game with plenty of storylines, so lots to talk about as usual. Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Friday to you. Yeah, busy weekend on tap. Going to be a late Sunday for us on into Monday morning, covering this game. What a big game for the Pittsburgh Steelers here, obviously coming off the loss against Cincinnati. Interesting run for the Steelers here as far as oppositions go as well, too. And this way, even though this is an NFC team that they're playing, man, it's really one that, look, this is a a measuring stick game, especially coming off of losing to a team with old Joe Flacco as well too. And so the obvious storyline with this is Aaron Rodgers versus the Packers, and that game obviously at Acrisure, obviously it being a night game. You've got the whole Steelers coming off of a little bit of a longer week and the preparedness that they have for that. And then, another storyline, the Green Bay Packers have not beaten Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh since 1970. And one other kind of swept under the carpet storyline that haven't heard too much about is it's rare for the Steelers to be 3 or more point home underdogs to teams since Mike Tomlin became the head coach in 2007. So this is one that I'm sure the Steelers aren't taking lightly, and now it's our job to break it on down beforehand.
For all the storylines, and most of it revolves around Rodgers and Green Bay, is Steelers and Packers. Packers number 1 seed in the NFC as of right now, and a really good litmus test, like you said, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A little bit later in the show, we got a great Packers beat writer to talk Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love and Micah Parsons. That is the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Silverstein. You can follow his work over at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Packers beat reporter for a long time. We'll plug his stuff a little bit later in the show, and of course get to his interview. But Dave, let's start with these health.
I've got something I want to start with before we get to something to start with here. Okay. As we covered in our pre-production meeting here, no, we did not. What do you think about this? Did the Steelers drop the ball here with the 1930, the timing of these 1933 throwbacks and all? I mean, this is a game. Look, I understand it's going to get exposure and they're going to sell some jerseys and all because of this, but this is two storied franchise going against each other, right? In the Steelers and the Packers, and to have this end up being a first time 1933 throwback jersey and the gold helmets, and then now because of that the Packers aren't going to wear their gold helmets. They're going to be an all white in this one. Does the timing should this be traditional Steelers in their home regular uniforms versus the Packers in their traditional away uniforms?
Well, what better way to honor the history of the franchises than to wear 1933 attire? So I think Pittsburgh wanted the exposure of the primetime lights and the opportunity for that. I think generally they wear some of those throwbacks in those primetime moments. So I get your point. I don't spend much time thinking about when's the best time to wear the jerseys, but I think this was a good opportunity for it.
All right, but I mean, just to see the Packers in all white, something you don't see. I mean, would this maybe have been better had the Steelers worn their color rush? I guess against maybe would the contrast be better with the Steelers in those all blacks and versus all whites? I guess.
As long as they win, they can wear whatever jerseys
Alright,
they want. They can wear all pink for all I care. It does
alright.
not matter to me. But point taken, it is going to be interesting, and it won't be the usual attire that you come to expect when you see Steelers and Packers.
Alright, maybe it bothers me a little bit more than most people here.
What will bother me if Pittsburgh does not have their starting center for this game. That leads us into the injury report. In Pittsburgh, generally a healthy team, but some injuries have popped up during the week, and the most notable one to watch is center Zach Frazier. He was limited Wednesday with a calf injury, then went backwards and did not practice on Thursday. Now, Frazier told reporters he expects and plans to play, but of course, doctors and trainers and Mike Tomlin will have final say on that, not Frazier. So his situation is certainly one to watch on the final Friday injury report. Also not practicing Thursday, DK Metcalf and Cam Hayward. That was just due to rest. They will play limited on Thursday with wide receiver Scotty Miller seemed to suffer a finger injury during practice, and TJ Watt rested on Wednesday, then limited Thursday with a hip injury popping up on there. So we'll see what it's like for Friday. Probably still will play, but worth watching. Calvin Austin has been full Wednesday and Thursday. He should be cleared, should play on Sunday after missing the last two games. And then while still on IR, should mention quarterback Will Howard has had his window open to return. We talked about that on the Wednesday show. Wondered, would it be Howard? Would it be Thompson? Figured one of those guys would have their window open after Logan Woodside was released from the practice squad. It is Howard. He spoke to the media. He's very excited to get back on the practice field. But again, he remains on IR, as does Malik Harrison with his knee injury. He has been full all week. And so you wonder if he will get activated and officially put back on the roster ahead of Sunday's game.
Yeah, I imagine we're going to have some transactions that'll happen on Saturday for both these teams here. And as far as the injury report goes, I'm expecting, I'm sure you are as well too, Frazier and TJ Watt to both play Sunday night. Can't see stranger things have happened. Maybe that calf injury is a little bit worse. We'll see what the injury report says on Friday. This will not bode well for the Steelers if either one of those guys misses this game, and if either one of these guys are, let's say, less than 80% overall. They need both these guys. Obviously, Zach Frazier's not going to be asked to block Micah Parsons a lot, but there will be times where Micah lines up more in the middle of the line there. But they definitely need Zach Frazier for this game. I expect he'll be there
You
for
do?
this.
I don't know. I mean, the calf injury going backwards, not a great sign.
I think, well, I mean, obviously we'll learn more today, but I don't look forward to Ryan McCollum having to play center. I tell you that. If indeed this thing goes south and Zach Frazier does not play, that's not going to be great for this team. But I've been wrong about this before, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say both those guys play.
All right. Well, I'm hoping so on Frazier. We should get some more clarity in his status, although he could end up questionable, and we'll just have to wait and see. As you said, Ryan McCollum will be next man up, and if Frazier does miss, he'll be the first Steelers starting offensive lineman to miss a game this season. With Howard, we talked about it Wednesday. I would imagine Pittsburgh will use the entire 21-day window before activating him to the 53. That'd be about mid-November, I think, ahead of the Bengals rematches, whenever that decision date would come. But nice to see Howard get those reps in and just be excited about feeling like a player again after being, as Arthur Smith affectionately called him, Coach Will for the last 7 weeks.
Hey, good for him, man. I know that makes a lot of Steeler fans happy as well, too. I kind of wondered which way it go. I kind of hedged a little bit to thinking maybe they'd have Skylar Thompson ahead of him just because of maybe the experience and maybe what he could give you on the scout team. But it sounds like they kept Will Howard busy, pulling tape and everything, quality control coach, if you will, along those lines there. And look, at some point, barring something going sideways here, he's going to be back on the 53-man roster here within, by the time the 21-day window finishes out there. And that means at worst, we will at least see Will Howard in uniform as an emergency number 3 quarterback here, probably around the time before Thanksgiving and all. So it was good to see him back out there spinning the football around, and evidently he's been healthy enough for several weeks now, and his learning process under Aaron Rodgers sounds like it's going well. He had a lot of favorable things to say about Aaron Rodgers and how he's being helped by the veteran. You like to hear that. Obviously, you don't expect Will Howard to have to play in any of these games, barring a couple of injuries here, but you got him back in uniform and back at practice, and that's a positive thing overall.
It is from the Packers side of things, and Tom will give a little bit of insight a little bit later in this show. There's a couple names to watch from a health standpoint there. Dontavian Wicks, who suffered a calf injury against Arizona, did not practice Thursday. It doesn't look like he's going to play this Sunday night. Devontae Wyatt's coming back from a knee injury. He was limited Thursday, and so we'll see about his status. Josh Jacobs has been battling a calf injury, but Tom expects him to play. And Christian Watson, the speedy, height, weight, speed receiver that's a real downfield threat. He has been on IR all season due to a torn ACL last year, but he was limited Thursday. He's working his way back. He told reporters he expects to play. No official word that he will, but it seems trending in that direction. So a big play threat Pittsburgh may have to contend with.
Yeah, this is a Green Bay offense too that's had produced the most explosive plays down the field overall. So Watson could definitely potentially help with that. So we'll wait, and I would imagine sometime on Saturday would be the timing of them activating him, and kind of expecting that to happen, and would be surprised if it doesn't.
All right, Dave, let's go now to the Steelers coordinators, Teryl Austin, Arthur Smith, speaking on Thursday, as they always do. We'll start with Teryl Austin, and the big question was, where was Nick Herbig? Just a couple of weeks ago, was Austin saying we will not limit Nick Herbig? Now the question was, where was Nick Herbig playing limited snaps in that Bengals loss? And Austin kind of recognized the need to get Herbig out there, but at the same time talked about game circumstance and some of the things Mike Tomlin discussed that limited and didn't always allow Herbig to be on the field. Specifically, he was asked about that last drive, why Herbig wasn't out there, why they didn't run the three outside linebacker package, and he gave an answer that I would expect about wanting to stop the run and worried about that aspect of it, and so he wanted to be balanced and not worry about Chase Brown ripping off another big gain. And of course, they just threw the ball to Jamar Chase twice and once to T. Higgins, and that was all she wrote. So Austin's answers unlikely to satisfy any Steelers fans upset by Herbig's lack of playing time.
Yeah, I guess we're going to just have to hang on to the fact, like Mike Tomlin said the other day there, stay tuned. Look, I mean, were you that concerned about the run, based on, yeah, they did. And here's the other thing that Austin said as well too. And I get your thoughts on this. Why do you think some of the play calling changed just because of those two second quarter runs?
Well, yeah, Austin had talked about the mindset shifting because of the Bengals running game. I don't think it was just because of those two runs, but they're two notable runs, the two longest runs Chase Brown and the Bengals had all season. So some people were upset by that comment. I'm not. I mean, you're supposed to adjust in game as a coordinator and, be able to mold and mend your game plan to how the game is progressing. I mean, if he had said, I didn't adjust at all, we took our game plan from the start of the game and did not change in game, regardless of what was happening throughout the game, he would get a lot of flack for that, understandably so. So I don't really take issue or fault with that commentary from Teryl Austin in a big picture perspective.
All right. He made sure to point out and even interrupted, I guess, one of the questions yesterday. He was asked, what in your mind, evaluated not just from the Bengals game, but over the course of the season, what do you have to do to become more consistent so that you aren't allowing a bunch of yards? He just says, look, we got to stop the run. I got a simple answer for you. We have to stop the run. When you allow teams to run, then it opens up all kind of things. Opens up play action pass, opens up or shrinks your menu, because what you do now is you're doing things to make sure you have to bring possibly extra guys down to try to stop the run. So the bottom line is we got to be able to stop the run. Then I think that opens up and allows us to play well. And, kind of tag on to that. Alex Highsmith talked to the media a little bit yesterday and says, "Look, we're in so many words, we're an elite defense when we stop the run." So this is a Steelers defense that obviously shouldn't have, or you thought wouldn't give up the kind of yards to a guy like Chase Brown on that offensive line that the Bengals rolled out a week ago Thursday there. And then now they got to get ready for a one of the league's best running backs in Josh Jacobs, and a team in the Packers that's probably going to try to test just how good that Steelers run defense is on Sunday night.
Something I've written about a couple times that got picked up, and the media was asking Teryl Austin about it, was the lack of dime defense. 0 snaps of that 6 DB package this year, and Austin asked why it has been completely absent this season. He says, quote, "I think part of it is Peyton Wilson gives us an opportunity in terms of being able to play nickel. He's fast enough to cover tight ends, athletic enough to do all those things, and it gives us, if we want to blitz, he gives us a bigger body in terms of blitzes. That's probably why I'm playing more nickel than maybe say dime, more nickel than in the past." But again, it's not been less dime, it's been 0 dime packages. And in my article I wrote about, that's probably the reason why Wilson, the flexibility, the coverage, and the speed that Queen and Wilson give, but Wilson has not been particularly stand out in coverage this year as a blitzer. They've been blitzing the linebackers more this season, and I think Queen and Wilson have been more effective in that regard, but that's the answer on dime. I still think, though, for a defense that's 23rd on third down, 21st and third and long situations, a 6 DB package is not a bad idea to start implementing more throughout the season.
Especially on second and third and long situations, right?
Yes, facing a Green Bay team number 1 in the NFL on third and long this season, converting 70% of the time on third and 7+, an absurdly high number. You better have your coverage people out there for those situations.
Do you think he's playing possum here?
Well, he hasn't so far. I mean, there's been no dime packages. We'll see if that changes this week. I hope that it would, but we'll see.
All right. What else from Teryl Austin caught your fancy?
Those were the big things. Some commentary on Patrick Queen and his maturation and kind of taking on, in some sense, the Minka role of being the guy closest to Teryl Austin to communicate and get kind of that player perspective during the game. And then some stuff on Porter cleaning up the penalties, which I guess is kind of true, but he's also missed half the season. So what are we really basing that off of? And of course, had the 2 penalties against the Bengals. So that story's still being written.
He doesn't intercept a lot of balls, so just put him out there in oven mitts. How about that?
Yeah, it feels like it. And that is one thing about Porter, is that the playmaking has never really been there, and that's been true of his Penn State career, his Steelers career, and so it is hard to be that old school lockdown cornerback, the Dom Diasamoah, the Darrelle Revis of the world, and Porter's not that, and probably will never get to that point, but you're not getting the complimentary splash plays from him too, and that's a problem. I think it doesn't get talked about as much because of the penalties, but to me, it's almost as big of a quote-unquote problem, even though it's not as negative as the penalties are obviously so, but there's got to be some more splash from JPJ.
It sounds like if you're talking about Joey Porter Jr. and just his limited time, and obviously dealt with that injury for a couple of weeks there, when you're talking about him, it's either a pass breakup or it's a holding or pass interference call. So why not eliminate one of those and just put oven mitts on him so he can't hold somebody?
Well, he's going to tackle too sometimes too. And
Yeah,
that may be
you
an
can
issue in the
tackle in oven
mitts.
mitts.
You can. Well, you can probably hold in oven mitts too if you really wanted to. I did think he had a good rep at the end of the game against T. Higgins on a go ball. It was after the penalty on him earlier in the game, where he played it the way DB's coach Jared Alexander has been talking about the way he needs to play it in terms of getting your head around, finding the ball, being physical. If you can get your head around and look at the football, you get a whole lot more leeway and latitude from the refs than one of your kind of the old school face guarding. That first penalty, he doesn't get his head around. He gets called for pass interference. And so that's the real big thing. Can you get your head around? A, it'll increase your number of splash plays, and then B, it'll reduce your penalties. It's a best of both worlds situation. So there is some good tape out there. It's just not been consistent enough.
Yeah, I like and some of the Bell technique that he used, especially late in that game as well too. Got turned around, just like he's still got some stuff to clean up a little bit, and you're gonna face a Packers offense that's got a main guy in Romeo Dubs, and we'll see if Watson gets back, and they've got a young yet effective wide receiver group. And, I doubt he travels all that much overall. And, with Ramsey coming off of a not so good game. But on the flip side, and look, I was, me, being out here in Las Vegas and during the whole Carson, what was his name, Strong years, and pointed out Romeo Dubs at Nevada, and really was turned on to him early because of watching a lot of the quarterback play there at Nevada. All that being said, this as decent and above average as this wide receiver group is, it's not like they've got a Jamar Chase, T. Higgins group, right?
Yeah, there isn't that elite type of receiver on the Chase Higgins caliber. So that does probably have you play a little more conventionally in terms of not needing some of those specialty coverages and bracket looks that you had to specifically game plan and install for the Bengals game.
On the flip side, though, if I'm the Packers, I learned a lot schematically as far as what they could potentially do to scheme some of these guys open, specifically out of empty and specifically out of some of those bunch sets and maybe condensed sets. And this is an offense that already runs a pretty fair amount of kind of at least 2-man kind of stacks and occasional 3-man stacks and some condensed stuff for me. But I'm there's a lot of things that I think the Packers can learn on tape, specifically in trying to rub some people off and with these defenders off, that I'm interested to see if they try to catch the Steelers in kind of the same conundrum where they had either guys running free or just some busted coverages.
Well, let's go back to the coordinators and anything else from Teryl Austin. I think we kind of hit on all the big commentary from him yesterday.
Yeah, let's go to the other side there, because look, I mean, plain and simple, they know they got to stop the run here, and they've got to limit the busted and explosive plays.
From Arthur Smith, less probably notable from his commentary, he made a 90s basketball reference, which was probably ill-timed considering what happened in the NBA yesterday. Some crazy stories there. The one thing that stuck out to me was Smith taking the blame and offering an explanation for that flea flicker, which was really an underrated part of this game. We had 2nd and 4, you were kind of rolling, and you have this flea flicker that wasn't a flea flicker, and it busted the drive there and forced the Steelers punt early in this one. And Smith saying that was a package play. There was miscommunication. Smith took the blame for it for not getting guys on the same page. If you go back and watch the tape, you can see Aaron Rodgers make a check at the line, which I assume was probably canceling out that flea flicker, and Warren just never got that message.
Yeah, and they were moving the football pretty good up until that point. That ended up being essentially a drive killer.
Right, it was. Yeah, there were a lot of moments like that. The 4th and 1 push that was negated on the false start. The holding call on Warren's touchdown that brought back that play. A lot of first half moments you'd like to have back that could have really built a sturdy lead for Pittsburgh. That would have maybe taken away that Bengals running game that ended up being so effective. Anything else from Arthur Smith that caught your attention?
No, just talking about how preparing for TJ Watt every week will hopefully help you prepare for a guy like Micah Parsons. I'll say this: I'm not taking anything away from TJ Watt. This is one thing that for sure that we talked to Tom Silverstein here in a little bit about. Micah right now is in that kind of relentless stage where, I mean, he is 190 to nothing when he's getting after the quarterback. And I'm not saying that TJ Watt doesn't give effort every time, but I mean, Micah Parsons is going at a type speed where you and I think Tom said this as well too. It makes you wonder how long he can kind of keep up that pace, even though he's not playing every snap on the field. That guy goes so hard on every single play that he is a blue tint guy that you just wonder on every given play that Micah Parsons on the field, is he going to end up in the blue tent, or is an offensive lineman or an opposing quarterback going to end up in the blue tent just because of all the chaos that he creates?
Yeah, I mean, he's a game wrecker, and Tom, as you'll hear in the interview, invoked kind of a loose comparison in the impact to Reggie White, which is a big name to use in Green Bay's world, but apt for the way Parsons is playing. And so Pittsburgh has their hands full, and yes, you can understand and appreciate the need to give Parsons attention the way that teams give TJ Watt attention. But Parsons moves around a whole lot more. So identifying him is going to be a bigger challenge than with Watt, than even with Myles Garrett. Parsons is doing more, and you might have a good plan for Parsons, but executing that plan are two different things. And that must be top of mind for Pittsburgh throughout this game.
Everybody has a good plan until they're punched in the mouth the first time,
Yep.
right? So it goes without saying. Aaron Rodgers is a storyline in this one because he's facing former team in the Packers. Blah blah blah. But I mean, and maybe Micah Parsons likes that as well too, because the storyline here is if the Steelers are going to win this game, Micah Parsons is going to have to be. He's still going to get pressures and all like that, but you just can't let him sack your quarterback 3 or 4 times in a game, or because you give him so much attention that one of those other great pass rushers ends up wrecking your game.
Well, you have to give him the attention, and you have to trust the other guys to win one-on-one. There's just no other way. He get 3 sacks against Arizona last week, so he certainly can still wreck your game no matter your plan. But he can also hurt himself, and I don't want to get too much into this game. We'll get to Tom here in a second, but he's got 13 either offsides or neutral zone infractions the last 2 years, and with Aaron Rodgers' cadence at home in this game, Parsons talked about he's not worried about any cadence type of stuff, but I would be, because Rodgers can get these guys to jump, and Parsons has been one of the jumpier players the last 2 years.
Can we get some sort of a free play where the whistle's not blown because baited to the quarterback and Aaron take a shot down the field that way, maybe gets completed? And I think the Packers have had that happen to them once this year.
That'd be the goal, to get that free play. Unfortunately, the refs have such quick whistles now, even on those offsides, where they'll shut a play down if there's any sort of threat to the quarterback, but that would be ideal, or even just the threat of cadence. So if you jump offsides once, you're going to hold your water a little bit more for the rest of the game. You don't want to jump offsides twice, and so it also has the impact of slowing down that rush if you get those guys to jump one time.
Right. All right, anything else? You talked about Will Howard and that window being open, and important for him for practice. So different philosophies. If you sit the guy out the whole year, I think it's important to get those reps, and we'll see how the season unfolds. But Will's been incredible, did a lot of things behind the scenes and tried to expedite his growth, and we could do without him doing the physical work. It's been like having another quality control guy around the building. We call him Coach Will, and now he's back to being a player. And it is good to have a guy in there doing some of the things. Talk a little bit about what quality control coach on the offensive side of football kind of is in charge of doing.
Well, it's really in charge of anything and everything. It can be specialty projects, advanced game planning. Howard himself has spoken about this in the past on podcasts, but also talked to the media yesterday, talking about he'd break down maybe 1 week cornerback play and tendencies or signals. He mentioned Aaron Rodgers whenever he was sitting behind Brett Favre those first 2 years would go through the signals defensively and chart what those mean to try to get a tell and insight on what the opposition is doing. That's all legal, by the way. This is not like Belichick Spygate stuff. This is all stuff that's standard across the NFL in terms of watching the tape and trying to be able to more chart and match signals to what play calls are. So just a lot of variety of different behind the scenes projects. Quality control coaches are guys that will do anything and everything. Arthur Smith himself was once a quality control coach in Washington, and then early on in his Tennessee career. So you don't hear the title too much anymore. It's kind of gone away. They're now just offensive assistants or some other marketed up, trumped up name. But it's an important role. It's a kind of ground level role that a lot of coaches start with. And while Howard expressed the desire to maybe coach one day, he's now happy to be back in pads and playing quarterback again.
And learning from a guy like Aaron Rodgers, that in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to hurt him.
No doubt about that. All right, Dave, let's get to our friend Tom Silverstein. He covers the Packers for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, has done so for a long time. A great beat writer. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Tom Silverstein. Let's take a pause and come back with Tom.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday, and that means we are talking to a beat writer who covers the Steelers' opposition this week. And with it being the Green Bay Packers, that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be playing Sunday night at Acrisure Stadium. We are pleased to have back on the show again. You should know him. He's covered the Packers for a long time. He covers them for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. I'm, of course, talking about Tom Silverstein, and you can follow Tom. You should already be following Tom on Twitter/X at Tom Silverstein, and I'll have that link in the post related to this site or to this episode here. So with that, Tom, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex. How are you on this Friday?
Great. It's great to be back. It's been 2 years, right?
Yeah, it has. Tom, if I would have told you when we got off winding down the interview almost nearly 2 full years ago that we'll talk to you in October of 2025 as the Pittsburgh Steelers prepare to play the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers as the Steelers quarterback, you probably would have told me I was out of my mind, right?
Well, I probably wouldn't have because, at that time, so what, 2023, he was playing for the Jets, or had already ruptured his Achilles. And, we really didn't know where his future was, whether it would remain in New York or somewhere else. And it didn't, I really thought he'd end up back in the NFC North, but AFC North, that's probably the closest thing. So I wouldn't have said you were crazy. No.
All right. So here he is, and obviously I heard a lot of the stuff that the Packers have had to say this week, and most notably Matt LaFleur coming out early in the week and saying, look, this isn't the Green Bay Packers versus Aaron Rodgers. This is Green Bay Packers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. He said he'd leave it all up to the rest of you to maybe follow that storyline, and the old conference calls during the week where teams would have an opposing player on to talk to. Those have really become kind of a thing of the past. But you guys were able to talk to Aaron Rodgers on a Zoom call yesterday, and let me kind of throw it out, kind of a three-pronged thing here to try to cover all the bases here. This is indeed the Green Bay Packers versus Aaron Rodgers. Second, you've covered Aaron Rodgers for a long time. Any key takeaways? I mean, we've seen some clips of it. He seemed kind of sentimental and talked about how he still plans on retiring a Green Bay Packers. So this game does mean a lot to Aaron Rodgers. He probably wishes it was at Lambeau Field. And then I guess lastly, the thing I want you to cover within all this, we heard all the storylines ahead of Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers. Is this going to be a good fit? Is he more trouble than what he's worth? And it certainly has not seemed to be that from our end of covering him. Where did all that kind of narrative come from? And is technically Aaron Rodgers the kind of guy in Pittsburgh that you saw in Green Bay there?
Okay. Well, let me start out with the first premise, which is that it's the Packers versus Aaron Rodgers. So I think the game is bigger to Aaron Rodgers than it is to the Packers. And the reason is that there's not many guys left on this team that played with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they're the youngest team in the NFL, and they have been for the last 3 years. And so there's not a whole heck of a lot of guys who know him. And so it has been more of a media, exercise than it has been for the players. You can kind of see they throw him, bouquets and stuff, but you ask him, about experiences and things like that. No, I've never met him. I don't really know him. See pictures of him on the wall and things like that. I think probably it's Aaron Rodgers versus maybe the organization as a whole, or, the coaches know him. But from the player standpoint, I really think it's kind of just another game in that regard. They're playing another quarterback who can hurt them. So that's how they're kind of looking at it. I if the last question, as to the fit for Aaron Rodgers, the whole key to why it's working in Pittsburgh, in my opinion, is that you have Mike Tomlin established. You have a culture established there. You have a hierarchy established there. Um, Aaron Rodgers isn't coming into a situation like he did in the New York Jets where they just bowed to him and did whatever he wanted, picked up whatever guys he wanted. Um, they were begging him to come play for them. And I think going to play for Mike Tomlin was the best thing that could have happened to him. I think it gives him the best chance for success because he's not running things anymore. He's not the general manager like he sometimes felt he was in Green Bay or definitely with the Jets. He's just playing quarterback. And I really think that is healthy for him. And I think it's healthy for the Steelers too. Now they can just focus on getting the most out of him. And I think that's still going to be a process. I don't think they're anywhere near where the process will be later in the year, or if he plays another year next year. It takes some time to get used to Aaron Rodgers and what he does. And I think the Steelers, are probably still going through that. And, so far it's looked like it's worked pretty good, but it probably can work better.
It is from what you've seen with the way and I know you probably don't watch his weekly press conferences, in Pittsburgh and all like that. But I mean, does he seem like the same guy overall?
Yeah, well, I have to tell you that I've seen enough Aaron Rodgers press conferences to satisfy my curiosity over the years.
Gotcha.
And, there's a lot of burnout on Aaron Rodgers around here. It's There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of, um, I don't know, a lot of psychological stuff that went into all of his press conferences. And so there's fatigue here. Um, I thought, he handled the session with the media here just fine. It was a little flowery for my tastes. I would have preferred a little more, this is how it was, this is how it is. Um, because both sides are just throwing bouquets at each other, and it's not completely sincere. But that's what you get in the NFL. Nobody's gonna grind an axe, you know, in a situation where it's gonna be a nationally televised game. It's important for both teams. I just It's just not gonna happen, and so it's kinda, this is just gonna be settled on the field. All this stuff that's been going on during the week. I don't know how Aaron Rodgers is, react acting with the media there. I've seen a couple of press conferences, and he seems the same. Seems like he tries to answer your questions in most cases, but there's often a message behind what he's saying, and sometimes it's subliminal and sometimes it's not. But, you know, I think he's still the same guy.
Tom, looking at this Packers team, the man who replaced Aaron Rodgers, of course, is Jordan Love. What has been his biggest progression from Utah State, a guy that felt a little unrefined, to becoming the Packers franchise quarterback? Is there a singular portion of his game that it's taken the biggest step forward to allow him to succeed, Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think they took a little bit of the so-called gunslinger out of him that, playing with Rodgers probably took that a little bit out of him. He learned the importance of not throwing interceptions. And, not when he was at Utah State, he was in a run and shoot type offense. He was the only thing they had his last year there. I mean, he was just throwing the ball all over the yard and he got picked off a lot. I think they've refined that part of his game, and probably what he's done is just the best thing he's probably done is just adapted to the system, is understood how important the footwork is in LaFleur's system, how important, switching plays at the line of scrimmage, getting into the best play, and and more than anything, the thing he does differently than Rodgers is that he truly tries to take what the defense gives him. He doesn't usually have prescribed intentions. Now, sometimes he does, and that gets him in trouble. But for the most part, he tries to just run the offense, and it's a different animal than when Rodgers was here.
One thing I think is interesting about the Packers is the homegrown nature of the offensive line, especially Rasheed Walker over at left tackle. Talk about a 7th-round pick that has become the anchor at left tackle. What has his career progression been like, and what's allowed him to kind of become this hidden gem?
Well, so yeah, he came out of nowhere. I think he should have been higher than a 7th-round pick, but there were some issues with his knee, and then I don't know if there were some off the field things. I mean, he's not a bad guy. That wasn't it. It just some question marks. And he kind of got force fed because at the time he got drafted, David Bakhtiari was trying to come back from a knee injury. And so he wound up getting some valuable playing time. Now he's sort of, he's playing in a bit of a contract year, and he's been up and down. Now he is there are times where he's just really solid pass blocking, and then other times you can take advantage of him. He will get bull rushed, or he will give a little lapse in his pass protection. That's one thing I think the Steelers can try to take advantage on that side, as opposed to Zach Tom, who's probably a stronger pass blocker. But Rasheed Walker, they had the option of playing their first-round pick from last year, Jordan Morgan, at left tackle, and that's his best position. But Walker's a better run blocker. He's a mean run blocker, and they just decided that it was better to have him, and they're playing Jordan Morgan at right guard right now.
When you look at what he's done offensively, you already hit on it. He hasn't been sacked a lot so far. In fact, I think 4 or 5 of those that he does have came against the Browns several weeks ago. And then on top of it, he's only thrown the 2 interceptions, and probably miscommunication on one of them and then forcing it on the right side on the other one. So he's taking care of the football there. And he's also using his legs as well, too. And yet this is a guy that still holds on to the football a little longer than most of the quarterbacks. I think he's probably right there around the middle of the league as far as time to throw. It's just and again, he's not completing a lot of footballs down the field, attempting a lot of 20-yard air yard throws, but when he is throwing those, it seems like he's completing a good bit of those. Is this, I mean, he and a year ago when we talked to you, or 2 years ago when we talked to you, Jordan Love didn't have his best game against the Steelers. But ever since that game, it's like the light came. I mean, almost immediately after that game against the Steelers 2 years ago, he's really started to become the quarterback that he is now. Is that kind of your take on him?
Well, he finished that year so strongly that, I mean, he earned himself a mega contract after that. He just had an unbelievable finish to his first year as a starter. Then in 2024, he took a step back. He got hurt. He hurt his knee, and he really wasn't the same. Then he hurt his groin, and he sort of lost his mobility, and he just wasn't the same guy last year. He just didn't make as many big plays. His accuracy was affected. Now we've switched over to this year. His numbers are really good. Probably better than, his completion percentage is up. His yards per attempt are excellent. You're right, he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. He threw a really bad one in Cleveland that helped cost the game. He's missed on he had a deep ball in Arizona to Romeo Dobbs wide open, and he overthrew it. But on the other hand, he's missing Jaden Reed, who's his favorite receiver. He's been out since week 2 with a broken collarbone. Christian Watson, he lost last year, and will probably return from an ACL this week. I think they're going to play him this week. It would be his first game back. So that he misses him. Once they have that going, then I think we'll have a better idea of how much advancement he's made. It's been up and down. It was hard early, in the Cleveland game. His offensive line, he was missing 2 starters in his offensive line, and that just killed him. They couldn't block Myles Garrett. It was really hard. Um, I think since then they're starting to get more stability there, and he's getting more time. And when he has time, he's really good. When he's rushed, that's when he makes mistakes. You have to pressure him. If you give him time, that's when he's really outstanding.
You can't talk about the Green Bay offense without talking about Josh Jacobs, and most notably in the most recent game against the Cardinals, they were kind of real judicious about when they used him because of that, I think, calf injury that he's been dealing with. But the thing was, when Josh Jacobs was on the field in that game against the Cardinals, you knew it. He's still, quick to the hole, able to make plays, was able to get outside for a touchdown on one of those runs. Probably not using him in the passing game as much as they would like to just yet. Are you expecting, is he healthier now this week, or do you think they're still going to be kind of judicious in that same style that they were against the Cardinals in his use, or do you expect him to get used a little bit more?
Yeah, I expect him to get used more. He wasn't too happy that he understood that they held him out, most of the first half to try to save him for the second half. But once he got in and was warmed up, he was not real happy that they were taking him out. He wanted to keep playing. He said he felt good. I think he's fine, unless something, you know, really severe happens. He's going to get the ball a lot. I think this is a game they've really got to establish the run. They got to get back to establishing the run. They haven't been a great running team this year. They really have. Actually, the best way to get him the ball has been in the passing game. He's been able to take some screens. He's been able to take some check downs. He's been pretty effective in the pass game, but they need him to be effective on the ground. He's only averaging, I think, like 3.7 yards a carry, and that's way down for him. But part of that is the offensive line. They've had all kinds of injuries there. And so I think this is a game where they're going to try to get him his carries. I would suspect they're going to try to get him at least 20 carries in this game.
And he's got a nose for the end zone, 2 touchdowns in each of his last 3 games. Tom, flipping over to the defense, can you give the backstory of how the Micah Parsons deal went down? Was Green Bay just kind of waiting Dallas and Jerry Jones out to say, okay, let's make this trade? And I assume Parsons has been as advertised in Green Bay?
Yeah, they were sort of just hanging about, checking in every once in a while. They were rebuffed pretty much every time. And then it got towards the end of camp, and they were one of the teams that was willing to give up 2 first-round picks. There weren't a whole lot of teams that were, and they viewed him as a piece to get them to the Super Bowl this year. And he's been all that's been advertised and probably more. I watched almost every one of his games after they made the trade from Dallas last year. Now, he had a high ankle sprain, so that affected him parts of the year. But I saw times where, he was standing around a little bit and he would catch his breath and maybe not pursue. I have not seen 1 second where he's not just trying to destroy people. He's on a mission.
He's a Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, I don't know how long that can last, but, they're playing him 50 snaps a game maybe, so they're limiting how much he plays. But he's just attacking double and triple teams like, I've never seen anybody since Reggie White. And the thing that was really interesting was, Arizona when they played Arizona last week, they have 2 first-round tackles, Jonah Williams and Paris Johnson Jr. And there were a couple times they decided, well, we'll let them block him one-on-one. and they did it down the stretch, and he destroyed them. He turned the whole game, pretty much carried the Packers defense. They were playing terrible in the secondary, and he just kind of carried them on their back at the end. So he's, you think you can block him one-on-one. Detroit thought they could block him one-on-one with Penei Sewell, and he knocked Penei Sewell around a couple times. He's really good. Now, as a whole, the defense, their secondary's been a little spotty. Their linebackers are very good, very fast, but he just adds an element that is, you don't add those very often. You don't see those guys. You see TJ Watt and you see Myles Garrett, and then there's Parsons, and there's not a whole lot. Max Crosby maybe, but there's not a lot more of those type of guys.
Well, from a Steelers perspective, that is a terrifying answer, Tom, to hear the loose comparison to the impact like Reggie White had. My last question for you, Tom, then I'll let Dave finish things out. As part of that Parsons deal, the first-round picks that you mentioned, but also Kenny Clark going over to Dallas. And Clark's probably not the player he was 5 years ago, but still a quality run-stuffing nose tackle. How has he been replaced on this Packers defensive line?
Yeah, great question. He is really the heart and soul of their defense, and they didn't want to give him up, but they weren't going to get him they weren't going to get Micah Parsons without giving him up. Um, so we all wondered, were they going to have to pick somebody up? What's going to happen? But Devontae Wyatt, their first round pick from 3 years ago, had picked up his play. Like he's been mostly a pass rusher, but he's been playing a little bit of nose tackle, a lot of three technique, and he's been really good against the run. And then he got hurt. And so he's been out for the last 2 weeks, and they haven't been the same. They just haven't been the same defensively, both pass rush and the run. And so he's back. I suspect he'll be back this week. I don't know how many snaps he'll play, but he's key to their run defense. Without him, they've got a bunch of hustle guys, but they're young, and they can be moved around a little bit. When he's in there, they're a lot better.
Defensively, when you look at them on tape and then you match it up with the analytics and all like that, they've been playing a lot of zone, mainly on defense there. They're not a high blitzing team from what I see on tape. They let their front four try to take care of that run and let those linebackers run free and then get you in down and distance situations where obviously those great pass rushers and Micah Parsons can get after the opposing quarterback there. They have given up a lot of receptions overall. I think they're like 7th or 8th in the NFL in receptions allowed. However, they're only giving up 8.6 yards per reception. Not a lot of yak, I don't think, involved in that. Is that pretty much the idea for this defense? Just keep a lid on things because they're not giving up a lot of explosive plays, whether it be on the ground or in the air, and then just getting to second and third and long situations, and then getting the defense off the field. Is that pretty much what the game plan is or has been and will be on Sunday?
Yeah, it is. They do play a lot of zone. They don't want the ball thrown over the top. They have one of the better free safeties in the league, Xavier McKinney, and so teams don't usually try to test him very much. But they hadn't given up a 40-yard completion until last week when someone jumped off sides and they kind of stopped, and Jacoby Brissett just kept on going and threw a deep ball down the right sideline for 43. And then they had a couple busted coverages, which was not like them. They don't usually bust a lot of coverages. They'll get beat. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm loving the matchups at wide receiver, with Metcalf. I think they're going to struggle a little bit. They're going to rely a lot on their pass rush, and they're going to have to get the Steelers in third and medium to third and long if they want to be successful. But yeah, they're not going to give up a lot over the top, and they're a fast defense. Their 2 linebackers, Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker, can run like the wind. Eh, but, I would be very nervous if I were Jeff Hafley about the matchups outside. I think that could be a problem.
The Steelers will use multiple tight ends. They'll have Aaron Rodgers get rid of the football quickly. They just can't let Micah Parsons sit back there and tee off. And yeah, you can try to double team him and chip him all you want, but sooner or later you're going to have to leave those tackles one-on-one, and that's not going to go well for the Steelers when that happens. As far as the running football goes, the Steelers' run game has gotten a little better over the last couple of weeks here, showing some life. It looks like the Packers' defense might be a little more susceptible to runs to the offense's left side to the defense's right side. Is that what you're seeing?
It kinda depends, I mean, it might be because Devonte Wyatt often lines up on the right side, but I don't know that there's a specific, um, side that they get exposed to. I haven't really noticed that. Maybe the statistics show that. I just think I think if they're not, if they're not getting their push in the middle with Wyatt and some of the other guys, then they're not really as good a defense. Then they're susceptible. So we'll see. I mean, they've been a little bit better against the run, but they've missed Wyatt a lot, and they got to get him healthy or keep him healthy.
There's been a little talk yesterday about how the defense is leaning on Aaron Rodgers a little bit to kind of help fill in some blanks for them as far as the defense goes. But Aaron's been so far removed a couple of years now. How can Aaron Rodgers help the Steelers defense be better against the Packers offense?
Oh, I'm sure he'll be able to give them some of the checks and some of the alternatives, what plays they'll run off of. Um, their whole thing is to try to make pass plays look like run plays, and I'm sure he'll be able to give them keys on what to look for. What motion means. They use motion relentlessly, and I'm sure he'll be able to tell them, how to disguise coverages. There's a lot he knows. There's a lot Matt LaFleur knows about Aaron Rodgers, so it'll be a little bit of a cat and mouse that way, but I do think there's some things that Rodgers will be able to help the defense with for sure.
All right, you got two good special teams coordinators, obviously going at it, experienced as well too. It'd be interesting to see how that impacts this game. All right, Tom, I'm going to put you on the spot here. It's Friday. I imagine you're about getting ready to get out of town too and go to Pittsburgh. How about a prediction for this game? Does Aaron Rodgers get over on the Packers on this one? And if not, how about just a final score prediction, if you don't mind throwing one out there?
Yeah, I had to make a prediction for our publication, and I took the Packers. I feel like it'll be there'll be some points scored. I don't think it'll be off the charts. I'm interested to see what the turf is like on Sunday. I think that could have a factor in who runs the ball better and can throw it better. I think it'll be a one touchdown game at the most, so maybe like 28-21. Uh, I just, I am believing more in the Packers defense when they've got their full, um, you know, crew out there, and I think they will, and we'll see if Christian Watson can add anything. But yeah, I should tell you that my predictions are terrible. So I don't,
So are
whatever
ours,
I
at least
say,
mine.
you should bet the opposite. That's my advice. But yeah, that's what I picked.
All right, tell the pub folks what they'll find over the weekend over at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel from you.
Yeah, so I did a story that's in there today about Roger's cadence and where all that came from, how that started, how he sort of picked it up from Brett Favre and ran with it and became, one of the best guys at the line of scrimmage and getting guys to jump off sides and using it as ways to change plays. He is the best. He's extremely creative, and it's pretty humorous how they've come up with some of the things that they've used. I put in one example that's I think is kind of hilarious, but it sort of traces it back to the West Coast offense and Bill Walsh. So I thought that was one of my better ones this week. And then I also compared how Micah Parsons and Reggie White sort of arrived in the same way. And their acquisitions are completely different. Reggie White became the foundation of the Packers, and Micah Parsons is being added to a unit that's already pretty good. So, but they had similar games in like their 5th and 6th game the first year. And so I kind of took a look at that. So that's kind of what I got this week.
And Parsons is a little jumpy, so I'm hoping Rogers cadence can work in this one.
Oh, it will. Everybody I talk to is like, he's going to get one of those rookies. They have like 3 rookies they're using up front, and they're going to jump. There's no question. He's going to get a free play somewhere.
You also have a nice video up there with longtime Packers defensive back Leroy Butler on cover 2 and cover 4, about 20 minutes long. That's real educational as well, too. All right, Tom, it's been 2 years. I don't know the next time we'll get to talk to you, but the next time these two teams get together, we hope to have you back on the Terrible Podcast talking about that. So have a safe trip and enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you the next time that we talk to you.
Thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. It was a pleasure.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast, where we give our special thanks again to Tom Silverstein, who covers the Packers for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Tom Silverstein. And be sure to read that article on Aaron Rodgers' cadence. I know I'm going to check it out here after the show. So really happy to talk to Tom again, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. Been covering that team for a long time. One of the kind of the most longer tenured beat writers in the NFL. And Tom, I've followed him for years. And normally when you get those older guys, they don't give you that much of their time, or they're kind of hard to track down. And Tom's been very receptive. Once again, it's been almost 2 years since we had him on the podcast last time the Steelers played the Packers, and just fired off an email, and he got right back to me right away. I said, yeah, I'll do it again. Enjoyed talking to you guys. So we certainly appreciate that. Also there, and I mentioned this at the end of the interview as well too. He's got a great 20-something minute video up on the Journal Sentinel website of him and Leroy Butler breaking down cover 2, cover 4 coverages and all like that. So that's real educational as well too. They got a podcast. Tom's involved with it. I think you can find the link over there on that site as well too. So make sure you follow him on Twitter/X. Give him a shout out. We know Margie will. Margie, we appreciate you a lot. Margie, kind of like our official greeter, if you will, or thanker, if you will. We see it, we appreciate that, and we appreciate everybody that does that, because these guys are not obligated to come on our show to do these, and we get a lot out of it. Hopefully you get a lot out of it with us talking to these opposing beat writers as well too. So shout out for everybody who does get on Twitter and thanks these beat writers for their time.
Yeah, it means a lot, because the internet can be an unforgiving place, as you and I know well. And so hearing some positive comments are always a nice change of pace. We appreciate the beat writers for their time as well. I know it's a busy time of year, especially for guys about to travel like Tom is to Pittsburgh. So really thankful for his time and, of course, his insight. All right, Dave, let's preview this game. Pittsburgh sitting 4-2, top of the AFC North. Green Bay Packers 4-1-1 after that 40-40 tie against the Dallas Cowboys, sitting atop the NFC North. And so they are number 1 in the NFC overall and number 1 in the division. No, it's a tightly contested division. So let's talk about this game, Dave. Plenty to dive into. Let's start with this Packers offense. Jordan Love, his offensive line, some young receivers that can make some plays, some tight ends too. It's a balanced offense that can win in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, they certainly are. And once again, you can't talk about this offense without talking about, Josh Jacobs, and when that guy is on, he is on. Now, they haven't been the best rushing team, pound for pound on, play for play. They do struggle a little bit on kind of running up the middle at times, but Josh Jacobs has been dealing a little bit with a calf injury. But I'll tell you this, and look, I owned him in fantasy, so I had a vested interest in watching this game on TV last week against the Cardinals. Come out, and he didn't play a lot early in the game, but as Tom said, they kind of let him warm up a little bit to that calf issue that he had. When he was on the field, you really knew it. This is a guy that takes the handoffs either out of pistol or shotgun, or even sometimes under center, can get upfield in a hurry. They like to run a little bit of mix in some outside zone with some split zone. Uh, uh, those kind of things will pull the guards a little bit there, and he can run in any scheme imaginable. And one of those touchdowns, he was able to get right around the end. So even though he's been kind of banged up, when he was on the field, specifically again in the game against the Cardinals, I thought they utilized him well and saved a little bit of the wear and tear and the gas in his gas tank. And I'm with Tom as well too. I think you'll see him get a little bit more expanded role. And what we haven't seen over the last couple of games, if you will, was him being utilized more in that passing game. And I think this is an area where the Steelers will be focused on trying to stop the run, and not getting sliced and diced, if you will, in the passing game the way they did by Jamar Chase and company. That we could see more design screens or quick passes out to Josh Jacobs. And this is a guy that's established in being able to produce in the passing game here. But just overall, they take care of the football. I think that's evident by just 2 interceptions by Jordan Love. He's not a guy that has been sacked a lot. In fact, I think 4 or 5 of the times that he has been sacked so far came in that kind of disastrous game against the Browns. They're outside of that, it's like 1, maybe 2. So they're not producing a lot of negative plays that way. They're not getting tackled a lot in the backfield overall, and they pretty much have done a good job of staying ahead of the chains. And when you do get some pressure on Jordan Love, you better have your eyes on him, because he's not afraid to take off with the football. And you saw this several times, just most recently in the game against the Cardinals as well too. He can easily pick up 7, 8, 9, 12 yards with his legs. So that's a lot to ask, because this is a well-rounded Packers team, and they've had to rely a little bit more on some tight ends because of the wide receivers going down injured. And it'll be, if they don't have Christian Watson back, and look, even if they have Christian Watson back for this game, it's not like you're going to see him out there for 55, 60 snaps a game, I don't think. So you're going to see them a lot of 2 tight end groupings. They'll either stack those tight ends on one end of the line, or they'll offset them equally off of the line, and have kind of a balanced formation. They'll easily run or pass out of those situations. So you've got to stop whatever they do on first down, most notably the run. Get them in some of these second and third long situations, something the Steelers weren't able to do effectively a lot against the Bengals. And look, one thing that hurt the Steelers early in this game against the Bengals is, even when they had second or third and long situations against the Bengals either converted or moved the football and gave themselves much more manageable situations. If you allow this Packers offense to get in second and short or third and short type situations, it's going to make for a long day. Just that simple. Because even though Jordan Love does have a tendency to hold on to the football a little bit longer than most, he's slippery. He's hard to get down. On the flip side, when you're the Steelers, you're going to have to find a way to get pressure into situations that Jordan does hold the football on. If you're not able to get to him in situations where he's holding on to football more than 2.35 or 2.4 seconds, then that's going to make for a long day one way or another here. So this is an offense that prides itself on taking care of the football, not producing a lot of negativity overall. They're not afraid to punt the football and put their defense out on the field. So somehow, some way, the Steelers have got to produce some negativity with this Packers offense, and if they don't, they're not going to win this game.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh's theory defensively has been taking the football away. It's been absent, a 9-quarter takeaway drought. In Green Bay, as you mentioned, only 3 turnovers this entire season, one of the lowest marks in the NFL. But I look at Josh Jacobs, who you mentioned should get more action, as Tom said, too, with that calf injury, another week out from that. He's got a nose for the end zone, Dave. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns in each of his last 3 games. If he does it for a 4th straight game this Sunday, he'll be the first player since LT in that historic 2006 season to do so. 4 straight games, one of only 8 players. Jacobs will become the 8th if he does that against Pittsburgh. Over the last 2 years, Dave, he's got 20 rushing touchdowns inside the 10-yard line. That's number 1 in the NFL. The next closest running back has 15. And so this is a guy with a nose for the end zone. You're right. With the pass game, whenever you see all these receivers they draft and bring in, and Wicks and Reed and Watson and Dobbs, you would think they'd be a little more 11 personnel, but because of some of those injuries, they've become a 12 personnel type of team and a balanced 12 personnel, a lot of 2-by-2 formations. And so there isn't that clear run strength. They can go to the left and go to the right. And so it's harder to kind of key where that run is going to come in at. And Tucker Kraft is a really good receiving tight end, but can also block. And Luke Musgrave is over there as well. So I wonder what kind of personality there'll be if a Watson comes back, even though, like you said, he'll be on a snap count, I'm sure. But defending some of those balanced 2-by-2 looks will be, I think, important.
Absolutely, and those are some quality tight ends over there as well too, as you mentioned. And pulling up real quick some stats that I had pulled up here. As far as receptions go, 32 receptions by their tight ends, 395 yards overall, and I believe, let's see, 5 touchdowns. 5 of their passing touchdowns have gone to tight ends. So they're not killing it per se when it comes to total receptions go, but when you look at their yards per reception, easily over 10 yards per reception from these tight ends. And they'll try to some interesting things. They'll have some delay things where the tight end will stay in at first and get a chip and then release and maybe try to wheel you out around the edge. So be on the lookout for that. Their tight ends are very knowledgeable as far as being able to sit down in space against zone defenses, and they could definitely use both those tight ends they'll have on the field in the running game as well too. So they've learned, even though they, going into the season, they probably were thinking they were going to play a lot more 11 personnel and kind of spread teams out, if you will. They've learned how to manufacture their offense around using more multiple tight end packages in this, and that's probably helped kind of mute their explosive plays overall. But look, Romeo Doubs is a guy that can kill you as well too. They'll use him on the quick slant. They'll use him to sit down in some zone coverages, and they'll also try to exploit you down the field deep. And as Tom mentioned as well too, they left a play out there on the field, middle of the field, deep, where they caught kind of a safety, I guess, kind of flat-footed, if you will. And Dubs had one deep over the middle of the field, and Jordan Love just threw it a little long on him. So he is a wide receiver that can beat you in various different ways overall. Now, if they get Christian Watson back when he's out there on the field, I imagine they'll be, because that's a guy that can definitely kill you over the top as well, too. And then we haven't even talked about Golden, what he's able to do in this offense. And oh yeah, they've got a first round guy. Look, there was a lot of talk about the Packers going into this draft. This is a team that why won't this team draft a first round wide receiver? Lo and behold, they finally did it, and they got to find one in Golden. And he's sort of been kind of hidden in all this because of the production they get out of Jacobs and because of the production that they get out of Romeo Doubs, right?
Yeah, it's a guy that's gotten more and more playing time. He's been about 70% each of the last 3 weeks. He's a speedster that's got 4.2 speed, the first receiver taken in the first round by Green Bay since Javon Walker in, what was it, '02 or whatever year that was. So been a long time coming, but they're getting a lot of good return on investment early on. It's a really efficient offense, Dave. Number one on third down at almost 50%. Also, like I said earlier, number one on third and long, so 7+ yards. That's 70%. Only one of two teams above 50% on third and long this season for a Steelers defense that ranks 23rd overall on third down, 21st on third and long. That is concerning, even in those moments where, okay, you got the Packers backed up, it's 3rd and 8, you feel like you're one play away from getting off the field. The Packers are the best at being able to extend that drive. It's a good offensive line. They do a great job taking care and subduing that pass rush with the chippers that you mentioned. I watched them against Cincinnati really just pay a lot of attention to Trey Hendrickson and making sure he was going to have no impact in this game. Even the Browns game where Love struggled, was sacked 5 times. Garrett only had half a sack, and so they were taking him away by and large. They have a great plan for starting by stopping your pass rush and then working from there, even if that means having to sacrifice the tight ends from going out in the pattern as quickly. They're going to chip, they're going to protect first, and then get the pass game going.
Their receivers as a whole have 64 receptions for 803 yards and 5 touchdowns. To put that in perspective, the Steelers wide receivers have 38 receptions for 612 yards, but 7 touchdowns from the receivers so far. You've got to make Jordan Love come off his first read. That's something that this offense wasn't able to do for the most part with Joe Flacco here. If you can get Jordan Love to come off of his first read, hold the football, that's when you're going to have the best chance to sack him or cause some sort of negativity. But once again, don't ignore he is a lot more mobile than Joe Flacco is. They do a great job of either package plays or RPOs, where they'll come up there and he'll get the box count and all like that. And sometimes they'll have it kind of mirrored where he can go either side with those wide receivers in some of those quick RPOs as well too. So if they get the look that they want, they're not afraid to quick throw it outside to try to give Romeo Dubs or Golden chance to beat the numbers outside there. So I imagine because of the Steelers pass rush effectiveness and quality of guys that they have out there, that you'll see Jordan Love try to more times than not work on trying to get that snap to throw time down a little bit lower than what it has been on average through the first 6 games with them.
One negative with Love is he's fumbled 3 times in the last 2 games. He's not lost all those fumbles, but he has put the ball on the ground. So can Pittsburgh ball search whenever it comes to getting pressure and hitting and sacking Jordan Love? That's something to watch for. I get a very old school West Coast offense feel when I watch Green Bay. Like, I first play against Cincinnati, it's a 7-step drop from under center. Very much the old school Mike Holmgren type of West Coast offense. Got to watch play action. It's a pretty play action heavy offense, and one that uses a lot of dagger routes and divide routes. Really wants to put safeties in conflict. And so the safety play at Deshaun Elliott and Juan Thornhill and Chuck Clark and Peppers, if he's out there, have to really be on their P's and Q's, because the Packers, even though they've not hit a lot of big plays, they want to stress you in the deep digs, in the posts, in the vertical pass game.
Yeah, I think Dubs and Golden, you could see that on as well on tape. Those 12 to 15 yard in cutters from the outside there for sure.
So, and a lot of speed and a lot of athleticism and youth. And so Pittsburgh, with an older secondary going against a pretty youthful Packers wide receiver group, will be important. Any other thoughts here on the Packers offense, Dave?
You gotta force them to into negativity, and that's something they haven't had a lot of. And
what's the best way to do that? What is the best way to actually accomplish? Because every team wants to force an offense into negativity.
You gotta take away that first read, and then at the same time, if you're going, you might want to play a little bit more zone in this one. I think overall, because you want to keep your face towards Jordan Love, because his ability to take off with the football, and I think you got to make him make a bad throw or two within here. Either that, or you got to make him hold on to the football and ball hunt as part of these sacks. You gotta strip fumble him as well. Look, you obviously want to go in this, try to create as much negativity as you can. And really, the only team that's been able to do that so far is the Browns, right?
Yeah, which bodes well. The AFC North team, Green Bay had to go on the road in that one and against a stout defense. Maybe Pittsburgh can mirror some of those things. I might play some more man in this one because I'm worried about play action and zone coverage, freezing some of these guys and the spacing concepts the Packers can use that might really create some of those big vacancies in the Steelers secondary. But of course, you're going to have to run a mix of everything, man and zone, to beat a veteran quarterback like Jordan Love.
And it goes without saying they'll try to see what they can do against this run game once again. Got to get off blocks. They run some nice outside zone. That gives Jacobs a chance to cut back and all like that. So you got to be. Tom talked about all the motion as well too with the eye candy in there. You got to be open to being attacked in several different ways in the run game here. And if they don't stop the run game, it's going to make for a long day because of the play action and all. It comes down to, if we're talking about a loss with this Steelers team on Monday, we better be talking about, man, can you believe how good a game Jordan Love had? You got to make that guy beat you with his arm. Plain and simple.
And I like the homegrown nature of this Packers offensive line. It's similar to Pittsburgh. A lot of guys they've drafted and developed. It's Walker at left tackle, though, like Tom said, is that the matchup you can take advantage of? Herbig and Highsmith on Rasheed Walker? I think so. It's Morgan. It's Zach Tom, a really good, versatile offensive lineman. It's Jenkins, the only one who isn't, is Banks to guard. So it's kind of like Pittsburgh, where you got 4 of the 5 being homegrown, and then one of the guards, Banks for Green Bay, and say Molly for Pittsburgh being the quote-unquote outsider, but it's an offensive line they've really spent a lot of time investing and growing.
More Bronco in this one? Got to see it, right?
Again, these things are situational. I do understand Austin's point whenever he spoke about that. They're in passing moments. They're in 3rd and 7+. They're in 2-minute type of drills. So that's usually whenever that package is deployed. But there's got to be other ways to get Herbig on the field that aren't so situationally dependent, where you're rotating him and Highsmith just simply more often, probably in that 50-50 split.
All right. They got their hands full.
They do. Going over to the Packers defense, talk about hands full. You talk about Michael Parsons, who's been a game wrecker, coming off his best game of the season from a box score perspective, 3 sacks against the Arizona Cardinals. And I think just the fact Green Bay won that game, even though it wasn't a pretty game against Arizona, says a lot about the state of their team in a positive way. You go on the road, their plane had mechanical issues. I listened to LaFleur post-game. They did their walkthrough on the tarmac, waiting for their plane to get fixed so they could take off to Arizona, knowing they would get in late and be delayed. They did their walkthrough on the tarmac. What a sight that must have been for some air traffic control guys. So to go out there and get that win against the Cardinals, I thought was really impressive. But yeah, with defensively, it starts with Micah Parsons.
They try to get you taken care of with either a 3-man or a 4-man rush, and they're not afraid to drop the rest. You'll see occasionally too. They'll sugar up the gaps with Walker and the other linebacker there. They're not a heavy blitzing team overall, but when they send Walker, boy, you better have somebody that can block him. Because
he's a load, man.
He will destroy your running back, and you saw that a couple of times against that game against the Cardinals there. So you got to be on. They will sugar it up with him, and then look, occasionally they'll drop out of that. They'll even drop a defensive lineman into a short zone to kind of confuse you, and they'll send Walker, and they'll drop a defensive lineman into a middle of the zone as far as that goes as well too. And all this talking that we're doing about Micah Parsons, they've got some other guys that can obviously get after the quarter. Rashawn Gary's nothing to sneeze at over there off the edge there, and Carl Brooks, who we learned a lot about during the pre-draft process when he was coming out, is a guy that can get after. To me, they have not missed really Kenny Clark up front either. Those guys are able to swim over and get off the ball quick. They'll rotate some of these defensive linemen. Is Van Ness going to play in this one or no?
I should ask Tom. He was out on Thursday, so it doesn't look great, but I'll have to check his spinal status for Friday because I don't know for sure if he's going to trend upwards.
Edgerrin Cooper is a guy that we talked a lot about during the pre-draft process, thought could potentially be a guy that landed with the Steelers during that time there as well too. So this defense just isn't about Micah Parsons, because there is a lot of time, even in pass rushing situations, that, or not a lot, but there will be some times where he's not on the field. But when he's out there on the field too, it does not matter the side. He will, and I think he even talked about this yesterday or the day before, right? He's going to find a way to line up.
Yeah, and he's unique because he aligns everywhere. It's end to end, up and down the line, B gap, off ball. I mean, he was that off ball kind of guy at Penn State that played on his feet a whole lot, kind of early Dallas stuff. He was playing in coverage some. He was really kind of a mixture of linebacker and edge. Now he's more of a full-time edge, but he can still align anywhere and has that versatility and flexibility. So identifying him, it's not just the tackles having to block him. The guards are going to have to deal with him too, more so than they even would with a Myles Garrett, who's not quite as flexible in terms of uses, especially this year and especially in that Cleveland game. So that's going to be kind of mission number one. But it's a good run defense. I mean, they're number wise, they're keeping a lid on things. They've allowed only a couple of big runs. They're allowing, I think, 3.5 yards per carry, only a couple of rushing touchdowns. They're second in the NFL in rushing yards per game allowed. And so it's been a good front despite losing Kenny Clark. Like two gap, they keep the linebackers clean. And you're right, Dave. It's a really good point. Quay Walker, man, what an old school kind of looking linebacker. He's 6'3", 240 plus, but he can run, he can thump. And I think Mike Tomlin's probably telling Jaylen Warren, you got a big challenge with you in pass protection this weekend, one-on-one, because Walker's going to blitz up those A and B gaps and really try to collapse his pocket.
Yeah, once again, I think they're one of the lowest blitzing teams in the NFL, but when they come, you better be ready for them. When Parsons is not in the game, you got to try to run at those edges. And I think really specifically, and I brought this up to Tom, it kind of does stick out, especially in this game in the And the Cardinals had the success that the Cardinals had on the ground, specifically in that game on the run, seemed to be when they got their offensive linemen on the move, either some traps or some counter plays. So I would look for the Steelers to try to get their guards on the move, some gap scheme type stuff, or some split zone stuff to try to attack the edges, and specifically running to the Steelers' left side of their offensive line. And we saw the Steelers have a little success against the Bengals, I think, in utilizing that. So they've got. Hopefully, they don't fall behind early in this one, can stick with the running game, but I would try to attack this to the offense's left, to the defense's right, and because and specifically when Parsons is not in the game, because he is a guy that can easily discard of a tight end or a tackle when you try to block him. It goes without saying the Steelers will try to give him the Michael or the Myles Garrett treatment, where they try to get bodies on him, but you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to double that guy every time, and he knows what they're going to try to do with him. He's going to try to move around and attack this defense from several different areas. So you got to be cognizant of being able to win some one-on-one battles. And Aaron Rodgers is because this is a defense that's going to predominantly play zone. You're going to have to get the football out quickly or move Aaron Rodgers away from Parsons, much in the same way that they did a couple of times in the game against Garrett. Try to create some plays that way, some levels type concepts, maybe where Aaron Rodgers has the potential to have his choice of what he wants, depending on what's open there. Quick slants, even though they're a good team against not giving up a lot of yards after the catch, there should be some opportunities to get DK Metcalf free off the line with some quick passes, and I imagine you'll see the screen game try to be used with Jaylen Warren in this, and that's another way that potentially you can get some yards. But the Steelers have absolutely got to find a way to make that running game take that next step forward in success in running the football, because every time that you run the football doesn't mean you're dropping Aaron Rodgers back and having to worry about Michael Parsons in that aspect. If Aaron Rodgers has to drop back 40 or 50 times in this game, and if he has to hold on to the football in some second or third long situations, this is not somebody's going to the blue tent.
Yeah, and it probably will be Rodgers in that scenario. that you're outlining. I'm with you. I think gap power scheme is a good way to make some hay in the run game. It seemed to be a weakness for Green Bay. Now, I know that Tom said Wyatt's going to come back for them or could come back for them this Sunday, which will boost their run defense. But I think some of the gap power schemes have been the most successful inside zone. I wouldn't get the ball in the perimeter a whole lot with some of the outside zone stuff that Pittsburgh likes or some specialty run game type stuff because the Packers are a fast flow defense. They defend that stuff really well overall in coverage. They mix things up. Third and short to medium, you get cover 1. Red zone, you're getting cover 4. Get some
Or
inverted
first and
cover
10,
2.
you're getting zone.
Yeah,
Count on it.
you're getting a good amount of zone. So, can Rodgers kind of pick through and can receivers find the soft spots? Can Calvin Austin's presumed return make some plays in this one? The Packers like to run defense, keep a lid on things in the pass game. So you may have to matriculate your way down the field a little bit more. But, I think Rodgers has the point guard mentality and ability to lead some of these extended drives.
I think you can use your tight ends in this one. This sets up for a game where the Steelers are probably going to have to lean on their tight ends. I think. Let me pull up another stat here for you.
Yeah, where are they at against tight ends this year? Do we have any of the data on
Yeah, hold on
Green
just
Bay
a
versus
minute
tight ends?
here.
I didn't get a chance to check some of that stuff out.
The Packers defense versus tight ends. They have allowed 30. I covered this. 32 receptions for tight ends for 395 yards. No, that's 4. Let me see against here.
Yeah, I'm looking. It looks like they've allowed the most receptions to tight ends
Yeah.
with 50.
Let me double check here. Yes, 50 is the league high in receptions allowed to tight ends, but only for 375 yards, but 5 touchdowns. So they're giving up a lot of receptions to tight ends. They're not giving up per reception a lot, but they have allowed 5 tight ends to score against them.
Which is kind of their philosophy. They're allowing as a defense only 5.8 yards per attempt in the pass game. That's number 1 in the NFL, but they're allowing a high completion percentage of about 70%. So they're forcing teams to throw short, take the check down, and go on these long drives. I think they've been great against the screen game. They've been really good against play action. They're not biting. They're disciplined. And so some of the things Pittsburgh likes to do with the outside zone scheme, play action, maybe tougher to do just based on what the Packers' strengths are in this game. But, can you see some of the dump-off throws to Jonnu Smith and Pat Frymuth and try to get some yak after the fact?
They have given up 35 receptions to running backs for just 154 yards and no touchdowns. So they are giving up some reception. They're doing a good job of getting those tackled with only 154 yards. And where does that rank? They are only 4 other teams have allowed fewer yards receptions by running backs in the NFL. So although they're giving up quite a few of them, you're gonna have to and they're doing a good job on explosive plays as well too. So we're gonna have to see that Steelers yak come into play in this one.
Yeah, from a yards per catch standpoint, the running backs are Green Bay's number 1 in the NFL against running backs in the pass game, which I think speaks to the screen game and blowing up some of that stuff. So can receivers win in this one? Can the tight ends get some yak? That'll be key.
Can they get explosive plays on this defense? That's going to be one of the things I think we're talking about here as far as the talk stat goes. You obviously just cannot turn the football over in this game because their offense is potent enough where they'll make you pay on a short field, at least with 3 points. More likely 7. So don't turn the football over. The best way to defend their offense is keep their offense off the field. So can we see them? How are they doing? How are the Packers doing in the time of possession aspect of the game?
Let me check here. That's a good question. Probably pretty decent because the offense has done well overall. They are
30. They're just barely have won the time of possession battle at 30 minutes 4 seconds to 29:56. So they have slightly won that battle.
And that ranks 17th in the NFL, so just about average. And again, Pittsburgh has only won time of possession battle once this year and have not won the snap count once this season. So keep mentioning it, but hopefully that changes one of these games starting this game.
They are the best team on third downs, which I think you highlighted early. 49.33% offensively on third down. On defense on third down, they are 12th, 36.9%. This is a tough matchup, man.
They're number one in the NFC for a reason. You don't get there midway through the year on accident. They're number 5 in red zone offense. The red zone defense has not been quite as strong, 19th, so can Pittsburgh, but their top 5 red zone offense makes some plays. That'd be something they'll have to capitalize on. Can't settle for field goals in this game.
Defensively, they lead the NFL in uh, yards average per play, 4.48 yards per play allowed on defense, tops in the NFL. They are second in the NFL in rushing yards per game at 76.5 yards per game on the ground. In the passing game, passing yards per play allowed, even though they're 15th overall in the league in passing yards per game allowed average, they are first in the NFL in 5.34 yards per passing play allowed.
Yeah, they do a good job forcing to take it short, not allow those big plays over the top. And we should highlight the secondary because we mentioned the front 7 so much, but Xavier McKinney had 8 picks a year ago, was first team All-Pro. It was a big acquisition from the Giants. He's got a pick this season. You got Keyshawn Nixon, who's an athletic slot corner. I think he's playing in the slot, might be outside a bit more. Nate Hobbs, I love Nate Hobbs with the Raiders. I wanted Pittsburgh to sign him. He goes over there. He's had some injuries, but he's back now. So there's some talent in the secondary too.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a tough defense to move the football on and score on.
And look at their punter too. They get a punter change this year, and he's averaging 52 yards a punt in gross, which is an excellent figure there. Actually, not a punter change. I guess he was there last year, but he's booming the heck out of the football.
And all right, we talked offense, we talked defense. You got 2 veteran special teams coordinators in Danny Smith and Rich Bisaccia, and all. So, going to be an interesting battle there as well too. A special teams play very well could decide the outcome of this one.
And I think Savion Williams is doing some of that back there. He is doing kick returns, and he's an interesting guy. I liked him at a TCU, this hybrid running back receiver. He gets involved in the run game a little bit. Not a ton of production this year, but he's one of their kick returners.
What fears you? What do you fear most about this 2025 Packers team? Their offense or their defense? And yes is not the appropriate.
I was going to say yes.
I can only say yes because I will say yes. But now that I've said yes, which side do you choose?
That's a good question. Probably the defense. That front 7 is just really strong, and they can really wreak some havoc up front. So, but both are really impressive. It's a really well-rounded team, and that is the reason why they're 4-1-1. But I'll say the defense.
Yeah, just be Micah Parsons. It's hard to just and then off of that, like we said, when Quay is a hell of a damn football player as well too.
Plus, their DC Jeff Hafley's done a fantastic job. Mentioned him on the last show, and he'll probably get some head coach looks this cycle. All right, Dave, let's get to our friends over at MyBookie before we make our Steelers picks in Week 8 predictions for this NFL slate.
All right, Alex, we indeed are welcoming back MyBookie.ag to sponsoring our pick section on Friday of the Terrible Podcast here. So, 14 teams have already hung 40 or more on the board this year, and the overs are printing right and left. Al Michaels wasn't afraid to tell everybody that when the game was over last night. On the
Classic
heels
Al Michaels.
On the heels of all this basketball stuff, which is just crazy. The more that comes out about that, yeah. How many of the? Is this just the tip of the iceberg, or is some of this stuff going to trickle over into the NFL? I don't know, but 14 teams have already hung 40 or more on the board this year, and the overs are printing. MyBookie is where my boys are cashing in on every one of those game lines, player props, same game parlays, whatever you're writing. MyBookie has it for you. New players can use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's promo code TERRIBLE to get started with the Bet Back bonus. That's right. Your first bet up to $500 with MyBookie.ag is fully covered. If it misses, just use the bet back token and it keeps you in the game so you can reload and fire another shot. Whether you're building your bankroll or looking to hit the lotto with money bag portion that they have, you can bet on anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. So, if MyBookie have used them for years. They're definitely a long time standing bookie in the online bookie world. And look, that bet back bonus program that they have, your first bet up to $500, you can use that by using promo code Terrible for first time players there. So make sure you get over there to mybookie.ag and take advantage of all the great ways they have to bet on the games this coming weekend, both college and pros. So with that, we should get to our picks this week. And let me pull back up the lines here.
And we're both 1-0 to start the week.
Yes.
I've not been great on Thursday night. We both took the Chargers last night, who laid the smackdown on the Vikings, who will turn back to J.J. McCarthy at quarterback, presumably next week. But Herbert had a really good game last night.
Yeah, -3 we both had in that one and covered that one easily. All right, Alex, the Houston Texans are hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Texans team still trying to find out who they are. The 49ers continue to try to battle through these injuries that they've had. They're especially on the defensive side of football, but Robert Saleh has, been able to make things work. The Texans laying 2 at home against the 49ers here. Interesting line.
Give me the Niners. Just keep feeding the ball to McCaffrey. That's been the elixir to all the injuries. Just more and more McCaffrey. He's done a great job. The Texans' offensive line, the offense is struggling. Give me San Francisco.
Are you feeling a little bit better about your 49ers pick in the Super Bowl?
Not really. They probably won't go to the Super Bowl. There's just too many injuries whenever they face some of the elite teams. But they're at least they're holding serve, and Shanahan's a good coach. So I'll ride this wave as long as I can.
Yeah, I've got too many questions about the Texans in here, and I like the way McCaffrey's being used, even with Mac Jones, who earns, I think, $100,000 for every win that he gets right now. I think the 49ers win this outright. Give me the +2. How about the Baltimore Ravens looking to get Lamar Jackson back from his injury this week, hosting the Chicago Bears, who have been able to string some wins together. All that said, they're 1-5, right? The Ravens,
Yes,
1-5
1-5.
Ravens are 6.5-point home favorites against the Bears. Alex,
Is Jackson for sure playing? I'm sure by the time people listen to this, they'll know. But he's been limited throughout the week, and there's been a little less confidence than it seemed like they were going to be. It kind of felt like, okay, after the bye, he's good, but it still felt a little up in the air.
I think that there is uncertainty about this, there wouldn't be a 6.5-point line. So
that's also probably
yeah,
fair.
I think Vegas thinks he's playing, and so does the betting public.
Ravens win, Bears cover.
Ravens win, Ravens cover. I'll lay the 6.5 with Lamar back. In a game none of us would be watching other than scoreboard watching. The Cincinnati Bengals are hosting the New York Jets, who have yet to win a game. Probably making a change at quarterback here. Jets looking for the first win. Bengals getting more comfortable with Flacco and Chase and Higgins, as we saw firsthand Thursday night. The Bengals are laying 6 in this. Will they have any issue whatsoever in covering that?
They could, but the Jets just ruled out Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, so no Sauce against those Bengals wide receivers. I think the Jets cover. I assume Tyrod's going to start. He's got the knee issue. He's questionable, but I think Glenn was intimating he is expected to play in this one. That will boost the offense. The Bengals still have their warts. Bengals win, Jets cover.
I'm going the other way. Flacco has no problem in this one. I will lay the 6 with the Bengals in this one. How about the Falcons hosting the Dolphins? Falcons, who are the Falcons at this point? They're laying 7.5 against the Dolphins this week.
Yeah, give me Atlanta. Miami's cooked. Falcons can run the ball well. Bijan's having a great season. Give me the Falcons.
Boy, what a guy that is. Those jump cuts that guy makes, man. That, he's not I don't want to go the whole Barry Sanders thing, but a lot of things that he does on tape, man, certainly does remind you that guy can stop on a dime and give you 9 cents change, man. All that said, I think the Falcons win. I think the Dolphins cover. This ends up being that half point coming in play. So give me the Dolphins plus 7.5. Going a lot different than you this week. Panthers at home hosting the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are 7-point road favorites in this one. What say you?
Bills have had their flaws, especially defensively, so it seems like on paper, the Bills will just easily handle this game. I think they do find a way, though, to cover that 7. Buffalo does, to win by 10 or so.
Yeah, I think they'll force a couple of turnovers in this one, and Josh Allen will be Josh Allen. I'll take the Bills lay to 7 points on the road here. The Patriots are hosting the Browns. That good Browns defense versus Drake May, who's really come into his own these last several weeks. The Patriots playing a little bit better defense along the way as well, too. Patriots 7-point home favorites against the Browns. Alex?
Some big lines this week. Yeah, I'm kind of glad Pittsburgh saw Drake May in week 3 instead of now, because May's definitely playing a whole lot better since that game. Give me the Patriots.
I think Vrabel will have something in store for Dylan Gabriel, who they've kind of been conservative with, although I do like Judkins. But I think Vrabel will know how to game plan this just from a defensive standpoint. I think this will be a low-scoring game. In fact, the over-under on this is 40.5, which is low. All that said, I think the Patriots just do cover, so I'll lay the 7 with you. The Eagles hosting Jackson Dart and company, they let them off the hook. They let the Broncos off the hook, 33 or whatever points that was in the fourth quarter here. Eagles laying 7.5 points at home against the G-Men.
Yeah, it's an emotional game for a lot of reasons. The Eagles are struggling in their kind of regard too. Was this in East
This is in
Rutherford?
Philly.
In Philly. Give me the Eagles.
Yeah, I think the Eagles say, look, it's all nice what you've been doing, but we still own this division here. I'll lay the 7.5 with the Eagles in this one. How about the Saints against the banged up Buccaneers? Buccaneers 3.5-point road favorites on the road against New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, it really sucks about Mike Evans with that broken collarbone. Maybe he comes back late in the season, but still enough there for Tampa Bay. They'll bounce back. And the Saints, Rattler's struggling. Kamara's not making any sort of impact plays. Give me Tampa Bay.
I think that defense alone of the Buccaneers is all, as long as the Buccaneers don't turn the football over, they should not have a problem covering that 3.5. So I'll lay the 3.5 in this one. Colts versus the Titans. The Colts at home laying 14.5 against a Tennessee team that's really, really struggling with their rookie quarterback.
They are, but too big of a line here in divisional play. Give me the Titans to cover.
I'll take the Colts to boat race them here. I'll lay that 14.5. In what should be a very good game, the Denver Broncos are hosting the Dallas Cowboys. The Broncos come from behind big time to beat the Giants at home, hosting the Cowboys, and the fantastic passing game of Dak Prescott and company. Broncos 3.5-point home favorites against the Cowboys.
Give me Dallas. The Broncos' offense has not been as crisp as I thought it would be in second year of Bo Nix and with Sean Payton. I know they had the big offensive explosion in the fourth quarter, but Dallas's offense, it might be the best in the NFL. It's right up there. Give me the Cowboys.
Dak's playing great ball.
Yeah.
They've got CD Lamb back. Obviously, George Pickens doing George Pickens thing. I don't know why this line is what it is. I'll take the Cowboys plus the 3.5 all day with you on this one. A lot of teams on the bye this week. So that leaves us, before get to the Steelers game, the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Washington Commanders with Marcus Mariota at quarterback this week. The Chiefs, don't look now, but the demise of the Chiefs was greatly exaggerated, I think. Chiefs laying 12.5 at home against the Commanders and Marcus Mariota. They're not, I don't think they're going to have McLaren. I think Debo Samuel's banged up. What's going to happen here?
Chiefs win, and they'll cover that spread. They don't always do that, but at home, that offense is really clicking, as you said. They get Rice back without Jaden Daniels. Give me the Chiefs to win big.
I'm with you. Give me the Chiefs to cover that 12.5 points. That brings us all the way back to Sunday night. The Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Green Bay Packers at Acrisure Stadium. Aaron Rodgers versus the Packers, or the Packers versus the Steelers, however way you want to look at this. 3-point line. Packers are favored on the road here. Once again, this is something that you're not familiar with seeing when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers being 3 or more point home underdogs in this one. All right. Putting you on the spot. What do you see happening here?
You know, Dave, we should have listened to history last week that said Pittsburgh was going to lose that game to the Bengals, given their terrible track record on the road on Thursday night. The good news is the history is much more favorable for this week. Pittsburgh 7-2, coming off Thursday night road losses in the Tomlin era. As you mentioned, top of the show, Green Bay has not won in Pittsburgh since 1970. Granted, they have not played a ton of games over that span, but the stat is still the stat. You know, Rodgers, whatever insight he might be able to have on Green Bay in this game, even though it's kind of a two-way street. This offense has still worked well. I think this defense will bow up. They've responded and answered the call coming off of poor performances. So all of that to say, it's kind of funny. Well, let me make my pick here. I got Pittsburgh winning this one 24-23. So by the narrowest of margins here. I know Tom said he's kind of the worst at predictions. I'm the worst at predictions too. Tom took Green Bay. I took Pittsburgh. So this game will end in a tie, I'm sure, is how this thing gets balanced out. But I got Pittsburgh winning this one. History says they will.
I don't know. We sounded like Mike Tomlin going through previewing the Packers, though, didn't we?
We always do that, though.
But
I think it's good to give respect and deference to NFL talent.
I think we have analyzed this good. As long as the Steelers don't turn the football over, I think look. This is a trend. I'm all about I'm with you. I'm all about the trends this week, and that's.
Are you going to go 20-17 again? I know you're going to go 20-17 again. No.
Right. And once again, according to StatHead, and I think you check my filters and all as well on there as well too. And when it gets to looking at the lines, it's kind of dicey trying to figure that out with the minus and all like that. The Steelers are 9-4 all time under Mike Tomlin when they are home underdogs of 3 or more points. All right. So, and then also you got the short week aspect. You got the Monday night atmosphere. Sunday night atmosphere. You got the Aaron Rodgers. Look, the only way Aaron Rodgers could look more forward to this game, I think, is if it was at Lambeau Field, right?
Right.
That's the only way this game means a lot to Aaron Rodgers. This is Aaron Rodgers against the Packers. I don't think there's any other way to look at it here. I think Aaron has made his teammates aware of that. I am chasing the trends on this. The 1970, the Packers are 0-6 in their last 6 games against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. This is a trend pick for me. I am going to go with a 3-point total finish on here, but I'm going Steelers 23, Packers 20 in this.
All right, a little different score, mixing it up on us. Do you believe Rodgers when he says it's not a revenge game? Should have probably hit his comments earlier. He downplayed everything, basically said just focusing on winning this game. He enjoyed his time in Green Bay. There's no animosity. He said this is not a revenge game.
To a point, sort of, kind of, but he is, without a doubt, he's had this one circled. Period.
Yeah, no question. No question.
And look, and once again, it's more against their brass front office than it is anything else. It's obviously, look, I believe all the things with him and his relationship with Jordan Love. I expect those two to exchange the jerseys after with he loves Romeo Doubs. He's had a lot of, but he don't know a lot of those guys on the other side of the football. He knows obviously the front office, and I think he wants to say, hey, the old man still has it here. And I think he makes a couple more plays. I'm not convinced the Steelers have a lot of explosive play. And one thing that we really didn't mention, even though the Packers don't play a lot of man and all like that, anytime he sees that on the outside, he's got to go after it, right?
I mean, it depends exactly what the look is, but yeah, I think Rodgers likes throwing against man, likes throwing to DK Metcalf, and can Calvin Austin come back and make a play? You talk about the addition of him to really boost this passing game. Situationally, the volume hasn't been there for Austin, but he's made some clutch and timely plays this year.
We have got to see the yak in this one for the Steelers offense if they're going to win, though, right? Let's get into the portion of how the Steelers win or how the Steelers lose.
Yeah, it's by taking the ball away a couple times. It's obvious enough. I know Green Bay's done a good job protecting it, but an offense that can, be able to run the ball still effectively. I think it's a defense that does blow up, that does stop the run. I mean, the Packers' ground game is still kind of a lot of the more physical downhill duo type of stuff, which I think does generally play in Pittsburgh's favor and kind of that big on big type of moments there. I just think being at home and having the mini bye to kind of rest and prepare and reset all works in Pittsburgh's favor.
All right, the Steelers win this game if they win on third down defensively. They have to take the football away this game, absolutely. They're probably going to have to be +2 in the takeaway column, I think, to win this one. Cannot let Micah Parsons just go crazy. He's going to get pressures and all like that. But if this guy has any more than one sack, it's probably been a long day for the Steelers overall. So we're talking on about a Steelers win on Monday if they take the ball away a couple of times, if Aaron Rodgers isn't sacked more than twice, and they're able to control the run, plain and simple.
And if the Steelers lose this game, what will be the storyline come Monday?
It's all the boy. You can't believe how Micah Parsons wrecked this thing, and the Steelers just could not stop downhill Jacobs. Period.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I think some schematic wins in the past game for Green Bay.
And the yak. We're going to have to be talking about the yak and the Steelers having a lot of yak in this game if we're going to talk about a Steelers win.
All right. Fair enough, Dave. I'm with you.
All right. What else do we have to get to? Some emails maybe in here?
Yeah, I know Matt LaFleur, I think, is just speaking right now. I don't know if he'll say anything notable before we get out of here. But until then, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Lane O'Neill writes in a couple of quick questions for you guys. After Trey McBride coming up off of a big game against the Packers defense, as well as Pat Freiermuth coming off his best game of the year against the Bengals, do you think the Steelers will look to get Pat heavily involved this week, or should we expect to see Mount Washington heavily involved this week off some play action? Hopefully Washington will be in block support for Micah Parsons, so I could see him being featured like he was against the Browns. Also, off the top of your heads, which is each of your favorite moments watching the Steelers that you can remember? All right, let's take the first part of this. I think the Steelers tight ends are going to have to be heavily involved. Interesting about McBride. Yeah, if you can get him singled up too on one of those linebackers there, and McBride did have a decent game. Could have been a little bit better game even in there. So I don't think it's just going to be Pat Freiermuth. I think you'll see the ball spread around to Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, to Washington. I do think the tight ends do have to play a big part in this game offensively for the Steelers if they're going to win this.
Yeah, I think it'll be a mixture. I think it'll be a little bit in between the great game Freiermuth had last week versus some of the quiet ones before, but a lot of this is circumstantial. It's no coincidence that Freiermuth's big plays came in those obvious passing situations. And the stat, I should have remembered and thought about this right after the game because it is so quirky and fun and very much in my wheelhouse. I might still write about it though because it's just so darn specific. But Pat Freiermuth is the first player since Matt Forte in 2010 to have 2 touchdowns on downs needing 18 or more yards. He scored on 3rd and 18 and 2nd and 20. So those were passing situations where you get your pass guys, your receivers, they're big threats there, the football. And in fact, Freiermuth and Forte, the only players since 1978 to have that kind of a stat line, 2 touchdowns on downs needing 18 or more yards. So point is, it's a little bit depending on the moment and the situation. I think Freiermuth does have reasonable production, probably some shorter stuff the Packers tend to allow, something like a 5-catch, 50-yard type of day, but I'll certainly take a touchdown in there too.
I think you're going to see too, and we didn't really talk about this when it comes to the Steelers' offense and all. I think much like the Packers try to do with the ball out quick in the RPO game and trying to get there. And look, we saw the Bengals do this as well a couple of times with Jamar Chase too. I think Aaron Rodgers will try a couple of these. I mean, he won't even have the laces. I think if he gets the right look on the outside, you want to see just how good those defensive backs can come up and tackle big bodies like DK Metcalf here. So I expect early on in this to try to at least slow down that Packers defense by getting the ball out quick, maybe in some screen game to Calvin Austin, to DK Metcalf, and see if those guys can get some yards by catching the football even behind the line of scrimmage. So I don't expect to see Aaron Rodgers' passing chart look all that much different than maybe it did early in the season, where it's a lot of short stuff. But I do think that's where the Steelers can win in this game with completing some passes behind line of scrimmage there. All right, second part of this. Favorite moments watching the Steelers that you can remember. All right, I'm older by just a little bit than
Not in spirit.
Alex.
In spirit, we were on the
Yeah.
same
Oh yeah, without a
length.
doubt. I applaud Alex because uh he is me now at a much earlier age. I think
Most
that's
others wouldn't applaud it. You applaud it, but
I
others
do. I love it.
concerned.
I think it's hilarious that you get mad at some of the things that you get mad at in just your personal life with labels being changed on food products and underwear coming in different packages.
It's unnecessary. There's no need for it. No one's
Yeah.
asking for the go ahead.
New and improved or is not new and improved
Right, right.
as far as us. And but I can't help but think about, as a kid, uh, the fourth Super Bowl that the Steelers won against the Rams. I vividly remember staying up and watching that game. Overall, that always stick heavy in my mind. The Steelers win over the Cardinals in the Super Bowl really is something that I will never forget. Obviously, some of the things that Antonio Brown, if we're talking about more recently, the Ben Roethlisberger years and some of the phenomenal plays that Ben being Ben type things stick in my head. The immaculate extension, those things. There is just so many for me to pinpoint. Look, the Lynn Swan catch against the ballerina type in the air floating catch against the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. There's just too many at my age to sit here. I mean, the defense being Joe Green. There's just too many for me to sit here and pinpoint favorite moments. But immediately when I read this, I could not help but think about being a preteen and remembering the Super Bowl win against the Rams.
Well, given that it's Steelers-Packers week, that 37-36 Steelers-Packers game
There
where
you
Ben
go.
hit Mike Wallace front corner of the end zone, that game-winning touchdown against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers is one that certainly comes to mind. I mean, the Super
How
Bowl is
old were you
obviously
then?
God, what year was that? It would make me feel even older
Oh
right
nine,
now.
right?
That '09, then I would have been, oh God, on years. I mean, I was a teenager at that time, so that was my youth. But the game that sticks out isn't even a Super Bowl or a playoff game. It's that '07 game against Baltimore in prime time. All the legends showed up for that one, 75th anniversary, and Pittsburgh just put the beat down. James Harrison's performance that day is still, from what I've watched personally live, the single best, probably performance overall, certainly best defensive performance in a game. I mean, this guy was just unstoppable that day in Pittsburgh, just putting the smackdown on the Ravens. It was 35-7 or 38-7, whatever the score was over by halftime. And that is still one of the most dominating wins Pittsburgh has ever had. And to do so against your divisional rival in prime time with all your legends watching that was a really special moment.
All right, I got one here from Paul Lutz. Next year's coaching staff already. With Teryl Austin's contract set to expire and Arthur Smith most likely off to bigger and brighter things if the Steelers don't win a playoff game, could the owners use this as an opportunity to overhaul the entire coaching staff, Tomlin included? And who would your top big picks be to fill each role? Do we bring in Flores as head coach and stay defense first, or do we pluck from the Andy Reid tree. All due respect, Paul, I get it, and nothing's going to prevent us from getting these types of emails. But man, are we really there yet to be talking about, don't win a playoff game, making an entire overhaul to the coaching staff, Tomlin included? I've said this several times, and at least where I sit right now, I would be surprised if Tomlin's out after this year unless this team just totally collapses, which I don't know. You got Pete Prisco out there thinking that there's a possibility the Steelers could lose the next 7 games or something. He said this past week and all. And look, as far as moving on, here's the funny thing. Last night, and I made a point because if Steelers fans had their way, they all pine for Flores to be the defensive coordinator right now. And then yet you look at Twitter, Vikings fans are saying, fire Flores.
Right.
Coming off this game last night. I mean, to me, it's just way too early to have these conversations about overhauling a coaching staff when this team is 4-2 and a big game with the Packers, and really a couple of big games coming up here. You got the Chargers, you got the Colts, you got the Bengals again. Are we there yet? I mean, do you have any thoughts on this whatsoever?
I don't. I mean, I've talked about Arthur Smith and the potential possibility of losing him. That's not a firing. It's just recognizing the head coaching vacancies that'll open up and the interest he could attract. But Tomlin's staying. I mean, Tomlin, he's under contract. He's getting paid a ton of money. Rooney's not going to eat that. So, Tomlin's not going anywhere. And I'm certainly not going to have that conversation now when they're 4-2, top of the division, and, still everything in front of them.
All right, Christopher King writes in, good day. I know we've moved on from the Bengals to the Packers, but was wondering if you felt that Jabril Peppers should have gotten some defensive snaps replacing Chuck Clark, especially in the second half when the Bengals offense was marching seemingly uncontested. Thought Peppers had a couple of good games in a row while Clark was inactive, and the defense was clearly ineffective against the Bengals. Might have been moving the chairs around on the deck, but should have tried every option, in my opinion. The Steelers, I don't think, lost that game because of either Jabril Clark or Jabril Peppers or Chuck Clark. But what are your thoughts on Peppers maybe getting more defensive snaps replacing Clark?
Generally speaking, Clark is viewed as more of the passing situation guy, and Peppers is certainly much more the run situation guy. It's why Peppers was up against Cleveland, because there was a run-heavy approach to take away Judkins in that run game, and then why you had less involvement against the Bengals and their 11 personnel and their receivers, and then the Bengals were throwing late in this one. So, no, I mean, Peppers, once Elliott came back, Peppers' role really kind of got squeezed out because Elliott's back as your strong safety, your thumper in the box. So, Clark did not play well in that game. Do you see? I think maybe Thornhill should have played more in that game. Thornhill's snaps weren't, I don't think, dramatically big in that game. Maybe I think his involvement should have been up a little bit. But on Peppers, I mean, he's really more of a run game guy. And, we see that this week, with Elliott back and some of the pass game threats. I'm not expecting Peppers to have a ton of extra involvement besides on special teams.
I agree with what you said there. All right, Seth Garlow. Maybe we've read this name once or twice before, but not all that familiar. Keeping Arthur Smith. Hey, Dave and Alex, thanks for the extensive coverage. Super appreciate what you guys do on a daily basis to keep the Steelers coverage coming. Thanks for that, Seth. Questions on keeping Arthur Smith. Do you think that with Pat Meyer coming out of his contract at the end of the season, that the Steelers will finally give Arthur Smith the opportunity to hire his own staff? Do you think that might be enticing enough with the upgraded title and the upgraded pay that Alex was talking about? Once again, we're getting into kind of post after season type stuff there. All I will say that is if somehow the Steelers wind up keeping Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator, and if they do move on from Pat Meyer, then Arthur Smith ought to be able to allow to shop for some of his own coaching groceries, if you will.
I mean, I think Smith in some ways has gotten to bring over his coaching staff I mentioned before. Matt Baker and Mateo Cambu are offensive assistants. They came over from Atlanta. I think Smith was hired before Tom Arth and Zach Zani. I think those guys all came together in the same year, but I think Smith was first, I believe. And so I imagine Smith maybe had some sort of at least okay on that and making sure the relationship with all those guys would work well. So, I get the idea of brainstorming other ways you can entice Smith to stay and stick around, and I get the thought, but I think overall, I think the offensive line coach is an interesting one for sure if Meyer is moved on from. But the offensive line has played better, so if the offensive line continues this way, will Meyer re-up and stay will be something to watch for there. But I think in a lot of ways, Smith has gotten some of his guys to come over for his coaching staff.
All right. And look, we got to see good test for this for this offensive line this week for sure to see if they're able to move that running game forward a little bit more and protect Aaron Rodgers from Micah Parsons and company. Brian Wisnowski from Indiana, PA, longtime listener, says, with all the talk of acquiring a wide receiver at the trade deadline, my question is it even worth it? What are the odds a new wide receiver can come in, learn the offense, and develop a solid chemistry with the quarterback and his teammates quickly enough to have a meaningful impact on the team's success? Seems to me wide receivers take longer to acclimate to new teams than any other position. Is it even worth trading draft capital for someone who'd have a minimal impact? Have other wide receivers been acquired by other teams at the trade deadline and been significant contributors over the rest of the season? Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. We would have to go through and cherry pick this by other teams and acquiring other ones. But short answer is it depends, and there have been instances where I think you've seen some wide receivers come in at the trade deadline and make significant contributions. I'll go back to my thoughts on this all along. If they're going to go out and trade for a wide receiver, I don't want a Mike Williams type. I want a true, legitimate number 2 guy that's going to be out there, playing those number 2 snaps at the expense probably of Calvin Austin. It depends on the wide receiver and how quickly he can come in and develop chemistry. I would imagine Aaron Rodgers would play a big role in that, being a veteran guy that he is, and helping that move along quickly there. But is it worth it just to have somebody in, much in the way of Mike Williams last year? The answer is no. Can it be meaningful if it's someone like an Olave or a Jacoby Myers? I think it could have an impact.
Yeah, I think if you're going to get a swing for the fences in this one. I don't want a Mike Williams kind of trade. How effective can it be? It's tougher. It's especially with Aaron Rodgers and trying to pick up the system and be perfect and all of that. But I think about D-Hop last year for the Chiefs was a really good trade deadline acquisition. I'm still mad Pittsburgh went after Mike Williams instead of DeAndre Hopkins. I thought Hopkins was a great fit for the moon ball. Russell Wilson, let your guys go up there and make a play. Hopkins is still a great contested catch, hands kind of guy. But I'm certainly with the reader and emailer that it's not as necessary to go add a wide receiver. With Austin returning, I like the offense overall, the tight end involvement. I think you still look, and if you do want to swing, you swing for the fences on an Olave type, but I'm not banging the table like last year saying you got to go get another receiver.
All right, let's end this one with one taking a shot at us and maybe more specifically you here.
All right.
This one's titled Good Lord, and it's from Ron Karipsky. You do a good job, Alex. However, dude, you're delusional if you watch the Steelers. All right. That's
Good start.
That's how to win friends and influence people. You ever read that? Dale Carnegie?
By Carnegie. No, it's one of the few I need to read. I have not read that one yet.
This offense has sucked since Ben and the losers OC has had the most boring offense in the NFL. The reasons for changes is so beyond obvious. It's Aaron Rodgers demanded changes. We saw it week 1, game 1. Things that loser OC never called before were now suddenly implemented. Who do you think was responsible for that? If you believe it's that moron coordinator, you're wrong. You should be able to figure that out if you grew up watching the Steelers as we have. Now, I have a bit more luxury of awareness given I've played and coached some college football, but checks Rodgers made at the line of scrimmage, choice of motions, changes in blocking that we've never saw before. In fact, more creative structure to play design to be more specific. So this has been all A-Rod. The Steelers OC has been a liability in addition to the team not adding a big-time playmakers, of course, until DK. And apparently Dallas can handle Pickens. Here we go. And apparently Dallas can handle Pickens, something moron Tomlin apparently couldn't. He has no coaching tree for a reason. He was too afraid of having his replacement kept on staff, which makes him an embarrassment in my book. 1 year I knew where I coached that we needed to add a stud line coach with former NFL experience. We did not get along, but for the team, I said, I know someone and I will talk with them because I know he will help us. We added him and we won a lot that year despite still not always seeing eye to eye. It happens. This team is close, but close doesn't cut it in football in the city of champions. We have expectations and often some issues stand out more than others. The ones I've stated are glaring, and thank goodness the OC was at least bright enough to listen to the input of Rodgers has had to improve the offense. We probably need to begin splitting out the tight ends more often to spread the field if they're not going to add another real threat at receiver. What they lack in quickness to separate, they could implement pick routes and really stress the defense and win the height matchups on the perimeter and down the seams. Also, running Gronk type tight end option routes, something A-Rod should be able to develop chemistry with. God bless Ron K.
All right. Well, I don't know if Ron dislikes me or Arthur Smith or Mike Tomlin more. It sounds like Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin more than me. So there's a lot
I don't
there.
think he mentioned Arthur Smith by name once.
No, just moron was taking the
And
placeholder.
loser
Loser.
OC. But he did
So.
make sure to say Tomlin is an embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
And all. All right, a lot to chew on. And being as basically is A-Rod the reason why this offense has at least been a lot more watchable and had some success that they've had this year.
I mean, it's obvious good quarterback play makes any coach look better, makes any offense go, and Rodgers has been fantastic. But I think schematically, this offense is still what Arthur Smith likes to do. A lot of outside zone, it's tight end heavy, it's spreading the ball around. Those are hallmarks of the Arthur Smith offense. You've listened to teammates, and I think Ron will disagree no matter what evidence is presented, but Trey Fautanu said Rodgers is not making actually a ton of checks at the line of scrimmage in terms of doing things beyond what's given him. Every quarterback is given checks and cans and adjustments, but Rodgers is not going rogue and just kind of making stuff up on the fly and running it the way that he wants to. And I think Smith has been a good coach to balance what he likes to do and giving Rodgers some more freedom, and Smith himself being more comfortable in the offense in the second year in the system. I mean, the play calling I think has been great, and Rodgers is not implementing the playbook. He's been on record talking about that. So I think it's the chicken and egg. I mean, Rodgers helps Smith and Smith helps Rodgers. That's how a good relationship between quarterback and OC should go. So I give Smith credit for that, and I certainly give Rodgers a ton of credit too because he's playing fantastic football. So I'm not going to call him a moron or a loser. With Tomlin, if Tomlin was so threatened by Flores, why did he hire him in the first place? He could have easily not hired him the way the other 31 teams were not hiring him, and no one would have batted an eye. So I don't really buy that at all. But again, I don't think I'm going to win hearts and minds with Ron K over there.
No, I don't think Rod's going to send you any Christmas presents or Arthur Smith and all like that. Look, is there value to the knowledge that Aaron Rodgers has on a play-by-play basis of checks and getting you in and out of things and reading defenses and trying to put the offense in some situations in the best potential possibility to have a successful play? Absolutely. That's why that's why he was brought. That's why he's the guy this year. That's why they went the path here. Look, you heard even our buddy Tom talk about here. This is more to me about Aaron Rodgers submitting himself to trying to work what he does well into what Arthur Smith's overall. You heard Mike Tomlin say the football that Arthur Smith likes to play. I believe Aaron Rodgers has submitted himself more to that than there is Aaron Rodgers coming in dictating this is the way you need to make this offense be. Would you agree?
Largely, yes. I think Rodgers has done more to kind of fit in than Smith having to fit around Rodgers. But these things are marriages in a sense, quarterback and offensive coordinator. And marriages, you can speak to it better than I can as an unmarried man over here, and you've been married for a long time. But they're give and take, and I think there's been a
Yeah,
lot of
I
give and
give,
take.
she takes.
All
Yeah.
right, all right. You're doing like an '80s stand-up routine over here. But I think it has been just a lot of give and take and a healthy relationship of both teams both sides trying to figure out what makes the other one tick and how to best implement the ideas and play to each other's strengths. And really, it's interesting because they're the same age. I mean, Arthur Smith is 43, Aaron Rodgers is 41, and so those guys and players have talked about that, how much they relate to each other and joke with each other. And Rodgers probably relates better to Arthur Smith than a lot of young guys because the age gap is just so close. It was like Ben in his last year when Ben talked about like I didn't relate to those guys because they're all 20 something and I was almost 40 years old. So I think it's been a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage, and that means there's good communication and both sides listening to each other and trying to adopt what the other one does well.
A good marriage only lasts long and works well because of good communication and back and forth and give and take and being able to not be so rigid and hardline on some things. And I think that's exactly what you have going on here. Arthur Smith does have a style brand of football that he likes to play. And good offensive coordinators, however, will be flexible to some degree, depending on how good they are. Now, can Arthur Smith take any roster that's given him and then work around that becomes totally something else? Probably not. But I do think that Aaron Rodgers, uh, I think he's got some stamp imprint within the big picture type of things. And I think that's what you're seeing. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers has made some plays uh or had some success on offense by his ability to check out of some things and into other things, but those are also options provided
Mm-hmm.
within the structure of the actual play, right?
Right. 100%.
I mean, it's not just, all right, pointing over here. You run, some of the things that Ben would occasionally do, right? Where, you know, you run this, you run that, and let's get this thing going. But this isn't all Aaron Rodgers, and it just isn't all Arthur Smith.
Yeah, it's both. It has to be both. There's no way to make it work otherwise in a healthy and productive way. So I think it's one of those storylines that got so much attention this offseason. There was so much hand wringing by the media. How can those guys make it work? And they've really done a great job, but it's not been highlighted enough, seemingly how well it's gone for Rodgers to come in and Smith to adjust and Rodgers to adjust to Smith, and those guys make it work.
If this team wins and beats the Packers on Sunday night, it's going to be much in the fashion that this offense has had some success, I think, in their wins this year. You know,
Hmm.
Plain and simple. And that means not turning the football over, using the shorter passing game, getting the yards after the catch. Hopefully the ground game goes in the direction that it's gone the last couple of weeks here. And Aaron Rodgers is not flat on his back, getting hit a ton. There, and I expect that to be the game. Look, neither Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers aren't stupid going into this. They know what that Packers front can be. They know that they like to try to get it done with 3 or 4 men coming after the quarterback and dropping those guys in coverage. They play a lot of zone defense overall. They prefer not to get big played. They prefer to tackle. Look, the stats that we read off, I think we got a good sample size that even though they give up a lot of catches to the tight ends and a lot of catches to the wide receivers, those yards per pass play are low. There's a reason that this defense is number 1 in average yards per play, and it's up to the Steelers to take what is given to them within that and then try to get a few extra yards by the pile falling forward or them getting yards after the catch in this one. And I expect if we're talking about this team winning, it's because they've been able to have some success in that area. If we're talking about losing, we're talking about the offense being ineffective overall, getting sacked and turning the football over.
Well said. All right, Dave, I think we're running really long on the show
All right.
today, so we should probably get out of here.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Get a username and password, and hit the login button to take advantage of that. So until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.